Hey, it's the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast, and I'm the host, Eric Trolson. FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards. This week, Wired's giving one lucky winner a custom graphic snowboard hand-built in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. And I'm stoked to announce that we've only got 12 spots left out of 50 in the raffle. So if you want to win a Chase Series, you know, that POW board I was talking about all last year that I couldn't stop riding even in the summer because it rips on groomers even, or any other model that Wired offers, join the raffle at Waffle House of Snowboards on Facebook. More information at the end of the show. We're also supported by the Boardroom Snowboard Shop. They've got locations in Vancouver and North Vancouver. You can go to boardroomshop.com and check out everything that they sell. Dakine Outerwear sponsored the show this year. They gave me a bunch of stuff to wear. I've already tried it out. It's amazing. And they gave us some backpacks, one of which will be given away in that snowboard raffle I was just talking about. Also, I want to mention Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. Those guys are awesome, too. Oh, yeah, they give us a hoodie that I'm going to give away at the end of that raffle if the raffle sells the 50 tickets, which I think it's going to do. Support also comes from Grouse Mountain, the peak of Vancouver. They opened today for the 2018-2019 season. So head up to Grouse, ride some park stuff built by Marcus and the park crew up there. Always a fun time up Grouse. All right, let's start the show.
It was a totally fun time, didn't get too gnarly.
I kind of look at the Mystery Air as an improved evolution of the Switchblade.
Snowboarding is ours.
And obviously I like working with Burton. As an old school snowboarder, you get so used to being treated as a second-class citizen.
And I was like, how do you spell your last name? He said, K-E-L-L-Y. And I was like, oh, we should get married. And he's like, no, too symmetrical.
This week's guest is a man boy, Chris Rasman. He's also a pro snowboarder, very talented, and he's also a hell of a nice guy to talk to. I tracked him down up in Whistler, drove my electric car up there, made it up on one charge, plugged it in, and charged it while we were talking. It was all full up for the ride back home. I made it back home with like 50K of range on the thing, which the drive back home was downhill, so that's dope. I'm really excited about having a car that doesn't take any gas. It's going to save me some cash for sure. Chris Rasman has a lot of followers, so I imagine a lot of you guys are new to the show, so welcome. I interview important snowboarders every week. I put out an episode on Wednesdays. You can go through our archives and listen to interviews with really important people from the snowboard industry. Chris is the youngest that I've ever interviewed, and we have a really great conversation about a whole lot of topics. So strap in and get ready for Chris Rasman.
This is Joe Rogan style.
Yeah, but it's
like pro podcast gear.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure these mics are like $800 brand new.
It seems like, but they're only $150.
Okay.
This is the only expensive thing. It's like, fuck, I don't know. It's supposed to be like $600. I think I got it for $300 on Craigslist. I'm a low baller,
dude. Nicely done. You're hustling and bustling.
I'm a hustler on Craigslist. Even my kids are starting to get into it. My kids will be. They know if they want something, they'll like check it out on Craigslist because they know if I can get a deal on it, I'll buy it for them.
Yeah,
you know, like
Dad, look, check it out.
Totally,
that's epic.
So you were talking. I don't know how we should start this. We should probably talk about, like I like to start them at the beginning, but I'd love to talk about your guys' podcast too, and then we can like circle around.
Yeah.
When did that start? Like it started about a year or a year and a half ago or something?
Yeah, maybe even 2 years ago. I think we started it around the time we were working on the Man Boys movie. How it started, we were like talking about it, like, oh, we should do a podcast. Like a bunch of us were listening to Joe Rogan and Serial and, just the popular podcast that, that was like, I feel like 2 or 3 years ago was kind of when Apple Podcasts started to really blow up and get on people's radar. They weren't new, but they really started to take like whoa, these things are great. Good way to soak up information. So we were kind of talking about it, shooting the idea around, and then finally Rusty, without telling any of us, just posted on the Instagram, on the Man Boys Instagram, that we were going to be doing a podcast. And it was like, hey guys, Man Boys podcast is starting. Like, subscribe here. Like, first one coming soon. And we were all like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
like you didn't tell any of us. And then we all messaged him like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I just figured this would never happen if we kept on talking about it. So I just thought I'd light the fire under all our asses and get it started. And so Rusty just recorded one solo in his truck on the way back to Vancouver Island, like the summer that he was building his house there.
So dope.
And just answered a bunch of questions that people sent in. And then, yeah, after that, he like bought like good mics for it. And we kind of just started recording stuff. And I was like, my idea was to do it freeform, unedited style, because I was a fan of Joe Rogan. So I was like, let's just talk to people. We'll get snowboard guests on, snowboard related guests, and we'll just shoot the shit for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. And
it's perfect for after, if you've been on the hill all day or you've been out wherever.
Totally.
And you come home and you guys just peel off the gear and hang out in the living room shooting the shit. It's awesome.
It's easy. You just have a couple of beers. Everyone kind of just lets loose. And I like it because you do get some rambling on when you do interviews that style, but you also get no bullshit. It's like straight up freeform interview. It's, it's organic. It's real. You kind of get a glimpse on the person's personality, and I don't know, it's just fun. I tried to try and not know about ignore the mics and just talk.
Yeah. I tried unedited. Actually, sorry, no, I tried editing first.
Yeah.
So like the first couple of episodes I put out, I didn't even have my own voice in them. I just was like cutting out all the questions, cutting out everything, and putting out just like what the other person said.
Crazy.
And it didn't make any sense. Some of them were like, if you go back, they're still up. They don't make any sense. It's just like somebody.
Do they feel unnatural? Kind of?
Oh, so unnatural, right?
Yeah.
But like, what happens when you start editing, and I'm sure you've done this for movies and for video parts, like the first time you edit, you kind of go over it, do a rough edit, and you chop it down to what you think it's going to be. And by the time you get to the finished product, it's so whittled down to like, like a 20-second clip is like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And so in audio, it's so tiring.
Is it more so in that in audio? Because with video, that's totally how it goes. Like you have a huge freaking timeline, and it gets narrowed down to this tiny little thing. But I can imagine in a conversation or in an interview, especially if you're with a talkative person like myself, you're probably just like just like sifting through hours of conversation.
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't really edit it much out of other people's. I would just edit myself out. So I would talk like this, going on and on and on, and then I'd ask like 18 questions in my ramble, and then they would go, and they would start to answer something. But whatever I asked them that they answered, that would become the little clip that I put in before, right? Like instead of me going on and on. Sean Curran said that he wouldn't be edited. It's just kind of his persona,
He didn't want to be edited?
He said, I don't want to be edited. And I was like, well, I don't really edit like that. Like, it's not like I cut things together. So, I hate fucking whatever becomes I love whatever.
Totally. Yeah.
But he did me a huge favor because he forced me to just put my unedited voice in there. And when I put that one out, I thought people were going to scream bloody murder and be like, God, shut that guy up.
Right.
And they didn't.
Were you a bit nervous about putting it out? You're like, a
little, but I knew the content was good.
Yeah.
Like, I knew it was better than anything that I'd done before with trying to edit shit out that I'm embarrassed of. Because most of the stuff I'm embarrassed of is pretty important to the conversation.
Dude.
Otherwise, the conversation just switches without any notice. You know? It's so weird. But yeah, it's kind of like, I've talked to a lot of people about it, the imposter syndrome. We talked with Jess. I talked with Jess Camara, and she's constantly...
Big fan, by the way.
Yeah, and she's constantly, looking at her life through the lens of like, nobody's going to want to see this.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you shitting me?
I used to live across the street from Jess before she blew up, and there was this. She lived in this French house where, like, before any of these guys blew up, it was like Dave Melisson lived there. Obviously, everyone knew who he was already, but then it was like Ben Bloch, LNP, a whole bunch of that like French crew before they were like they lived across the street from the art barn, and that's how I met Jess. And I remember always really liking her, but just being like, damn, that girl's always so hard on herself. Like,
really?
She was always like, she always had like an injury she was dealing with, and she was always just like, had the like, people hate me vibe. And it was like kind of hard to watch because I was like, you're really, back then I was just like, I don't know, you're a really good snowboarder for a chick. It's kind of, that was in my head. And I was like,
She was
so hard on herself, and then she just blew up.
She was blazing a path too that hadn't really been like her street part. I forget what one it was that blew up like crazy, and she won part of the year.
Yeah,
that part I remember watching it and being like, oh fuck. Like before that, I'm like a hack amateur for sure, you know. But I always kind of held it in my brain that if I had just grown my hair out and shaved real close. And I could wear girls' clothes and maybe do all right on the girls' circuit, you know. But like at that point, I put that dream away too. I was like, "Fuck, she's better than I'll ever be for sure."
Oh, dude!
And her style is so good. That's the thing. Like for me, like the thing that catches my eye is style
and like commitment.
Yeah,
like, what really stood out watching her snowboard was like just no fear of getting hurt. And that, like, kind of what you see in, like, an 18-year-old guy new on the scene. He's just, like, going balls to the wall. He hasn't been hurt yet. And, like, she kind of was doing that throughout her whole career, like, just committing so hard to presses and hitting, like, gnarly spots and just, like you said, a focus on style. Whereas, like, maybe some people who are being a little bit more cautious would, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just, like, commitment in their snowboarding.
How cool was that house? Like, did you ride with LMP and Bielak and those guys?
I don't know, not really, because when I moved to Whistler, the crew that I linked up with, just because I moved into the art barn, was like the Narcor crew.
Okay.
So I like fresh out of high school, 17 years old, moved into the basement of this house, just like through one connection that I had in the house. Like a friend from high school's cousin was living there, trying to make a mountain bike movie that summer, and I moved in there, and it was like became friends with Beardmore, and like kind of met Dave Rouleau and Gerhard Gross and Keith Martin, and so that was like my crew. And I became friends with those guys. And I remember we always just would look across the street. And I remember seeing LNP skateboarding in the driveway wearing like a huge green hoodie and like painted on brown jeans.
Yeah.
And Beardmore's like, who's that Peter Pan looking motherfucker? Like, who's that guy? And so we called LNP Peter Pan before we even knew who he was.
Wow.
So we didn't really board with those guys. But then, you know, eventually they kind of all started making a name for themselves. And I remember they would ride around in Black Omen Park all in a pack. Mm-hmm. All wearing like all black and like pretty tight fitting gear for the time, because back then it was still like pretty baggy shit, and they were all wearing tight stuff and just be riding so well. Like it was like, who the fuck are these guys? Like they definitely made an impact pretty quickly.
That's what I was saying about Whistler before, was that it was intimidating coming up here. See, I came from a small place in Ontario, where for whatever reason, I thought I was the best. Mm-hmm. I was the only one who wanted to be thought of as the best. So then I thought, well, then obviously I'm the best, right? Like looking back, there were guys with better style, and there's no way of telling who's the best. That's the thing. In snowboarding, there's this diametric balance between best and most authentic. You know what I mean? So some people would be most authentic, and it's very rare that the best person's also the most authentic. But when it is, that's like your Jamie Lands and your, you know, Travis. Yeah, probably. I would definitely put Travis in that category.
Travis Rice.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely had some sort of weird tunnel vision for being the best in Sudbury. So I moved to Vancouver, like I said.
You went from like big fish, small town.
Yeah, to like another small town. Like Vancouver, small local mountain scene is very small. Mm-hmm. So I was like at Cypress, and I'm like, fuck, I could maybe be the best guy here at Cypress, you know, on any given day. And then Grouse, I'm like, another place where I am the master. Yes. Bow down before my great 540. You know, like I really thought I was great. Yeah. And then I went
Nobody pokes the 5 like I poke this 5.
Yeah, totally. And I get to Seymour, and I was like, oh, fuck, there's a lot of really good guys here. Yeah. And then so I kind of wrote Seymour off a little bit, being like, well, it's not as big and cool as Cypress, you know what I mean? Meanwhile, the scene at Seymour was blowing up, and there were so many good guys there. It was insane.
Totally.
And don't even talk about going to Baker or Whistler, because as soon as I would get there, any delusions I had about being great at Grouse were like, okay, there's real riders here.
Yeah.
24/7, there's always someone on the hill that's like 10 times better than I'll ever be, even if I practice my whole life.
Yeah.
So I settled into Vancouver pretty, you know, like it was easy for me to stay at a small mountain.
That makes sense. That's funny, because like growing up in Vancouver and seeing the local mountain scene, and I mean, I didn't really grow up with like a park background or a freestyle background. Like I definitely moved to Whistler with like 0 freestyle skills. Like I think the bag of tricks I had when I graduated high school was like front 3, front 5, and a laid out backflip. But I just remember being a weekend warrior at Whistler, and like you said, just being blown away by the talent. That you'd go up Catskinner Chair, and I'd watch the Wildcats rolling through the park, or like the Alterna guys or the Narcor guys or whatever sandbox crew, like young Rusty and young Mark Sollers before I was friends with him, and just being like, whoa, this is the place. Like, this is, in my head I was like, this is where all the best snowboarders in the world are, for sure. Like
and I wanted to be a part of it. Yeah,
it made me want to be a part of it. I was
epic.
like, I was intimidated by it because I was like, wow, I'm too old to have such a limited bag of tricks. Because like, I just didn't come from a freestyle background. I grew up free riding with like my dad and my uncles, because I didn't have that many friends from high school that were into boarding. I had like one friend that was into boarding, and all he wanted to do was ride POW. He just wanted to go on hikes and ride POW. You know, like 15 years old, and he's like, let's snowshoe up to the top of Cypress before it's open and ride POW. Like, that was the style of dude he was back then. And so I never really like.
That's
developed.
very West Coast, dude. Like most of the guys that are like hungry for the freestyle stuff are from Quebec or from Ontario.
Totally, it's all they have.
From fucking Winnipeg or something, and they just, everything out here, their eyes are just huge. Yeah. Whereas if you grew up out here, you might be influenced, like you say, by your parents, who, if the cool parents are already going after like POW, deep POW is like the thing. You know, if I had to choose 5 days a year, I'm going to choose. Actually, still not. I'd still want like a couple park days, a couple POW days. Even groomers are fun, man. Dude, like the variety of snowboarding is like the best.
Oh yeah, a good like packed powder day on the groomers up here.
Yep,
epic.
It's
so fun, especially on the local mountains. Night boarding.
Right.
Like being able to. What was is so cool about Vancouver that Whistler never really had. You know, Whistler had like a night pipe for a while. That was short lived but rad. But Vancouver had, like, I grew up riding night powder.
Totally.
How crazy is that?
It's the best.
Like I look back and I'm like, I don't remember the last time I got to ride POW in the trees at night.
Right.
Like not since I was in high school. Like that shit was crazy.
We had a few days last year, but if you go mostly to the local mountains, you get a few really good days up there. Yeah. And it's easy for like an old guy like me to recruit other people over to the like, you know, this is all we need, you know? Yeah. Totally. Like fresh tracks from 8 in the morning until noon. That's all my legs can handle. Yeah. And we have it all to ourselves. Mm-hmm. Whereas if we were at Whistler, you know, we talk it down
all the
like,
shred dogs come into play.
There's people in tents that have camped out for 2 days to get that storm cycle. Yeah. And it's over in an hour. Like there isn't anywhere left to go after an hour. But that's not true. If you live up here and you're as hungry as we are down there, then you get good shit up here all the time, I'd imagine.
It's half true. Yeah. It's I mean, definitely more so now. I mean, just like we were talking about in the lobby, just with population, I feel like you can like pin everything. It's like 90% of the world's problems, I feel like you can like pin down to just like overpopulation. Like there's just more people in the world, so there's just more people everywhere. And then combine that with the internet and social media, and people want to do all the cool shit that they're seeing online. And anyways, we get going off track here, but what I'm saying is, like, even when I moved to Whistler, I was already overwhelmed by how on it people were after a POW day, where it was like I could finish school and go up Cypress with my dad at night, and it's been clear all day, and still find powder in the trees. Totally. And I was like, oh yeah, no big deal. Like that, you can't really do that on Whistler. You got to really like know your stashes or know your pockets. Like people are so on it here and so hungry. Everyone's just like.
It's a lot of work out. Too. It's a lot of work sometimes. Like I go to Grouse and ride just that fall line chair, the Olympic chair, and you just kind of start where the chair is, and then you move over one, move over one, move over one. Totally. And there's no hiking involved. There's nothing.
Yeah, you're gonna get a couple fresh turns each run, no matter what.
Oh yeah, and a lot of times I'm talking top to bottom fresh turns, which top to bottom of Grouse is like one section.
Yeah, like 10 turns.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But I used to get frustrated up here with like whoever is guiding us to where the goods are. There's always too many cooks in the kitchen, and then and then no matter where you go, you're mad because the other guy says where we were going to go.
That would have been better. Now it's too late.
Now it's too late.
Now there's half an hour in between it. Yeah. Now all of the other shred dogs have gotten there.
Yeah, why don't we get a waffle and a beer now for $30 and smoke a cigarette and fuck the fuck this day. And I hate that.
Dude,
I'm like, no, we can't do that. I paid $120 for my day today.
Milking it.
Yeah, we got to milk it, guys. But yeah, so let's circle all the way back. Where you were in North Van when you first started to snowboard?
Yeah, I grew up in like Dunbar area. Like my house I grew up in was on 23rd and Blenheim in Vancouver, and yeah, I grew up snowboarding in North Van. Like I got into snowboarding my 10th birthday. My dad came home with a 122 Burton chopper for me, yes. And I actually came from like a surf background because my grandparents had a house in Hawaii, and that was like our summer vacation spot. So I actually thought I was going to be a pro surfer.
Wow.
I wanted to be a pro surfer.
Sick.
And then I got into snowboarding and then got a little bit older and realized that was like kind of crazy and out of reach being a kid from Vancouver. And I actually really liked snowboarding and liked what came with it. And I was like, I'm going to do this instead. But yeah, so my local resort was Cypress, just because that was the resort that my dad and my uncles liked. So obviously that's where I got my pass, and that's what I went up doing. And yeah, it was like Cypress with like a little pinch of grouse here and there. Didn't even really ride Seymour much until like maybe the last year or two of high school, like a couple times. But.
Yeah. And by the last year or two of high school, how good at snowboarding are you? Are you competing and stuff, or are you just still...
So I started snowboarding at 11 and pretty much just like never took a lesson. My dad taught me, and I just free rode Cypress and grouse with my dad and my two uncles. So my two uncles are skiers, and my dad was a snowboarder and is a snowboarder, and we would just free ride. They would take me on like pow tree runs, we'd do hit runs, we'd freaking ride moguls, because even my dad as a snowboarder has always loved moguls. And so that was just my world. I didn't come from like, I didn't have like a group of friends that I grew up rebelling with snowboarding together. Like I snowboarded with my dad and my uncles. And then come high school, met one friend, like literally in all my whole high school group, one friend that was like kind of into snowboarding. Started riding with him a little bit more. I still rode with my dad a lot, but would go up to, that's when I started like riding at Seymour. Like my friend Mark, he's like, dude, like why do you guys always go to Cypress? Like Seymour's got jumps and it's got rails, and like I see Devin Walsh up there sometimes, and like I always see Dion Delisale. Like Dion's always, and I'm like, oh fuck, like I should ride Seymour. So then I kind of started riding Seymour a little bit with like Mark, and you know, I'd go chuck myself off the jumps they had there, off the side hits, like learn backflips and threes. But dude, fuck, like to circle back to your question of like where I was last 2 years of high school in terms of like snowboard skill, I'd say I was like a super strong rider for that age. I could like ride POW and ride a mountain fast and drop cliffs and all that stuff, but I could barely do a proper 360 and keep it flat. I could do laid out backflips off of side hits, maybe the occasional wildcat if like everything lined up properly. Like I did not have freestyle foundation at all.
Right.
Like zero.
I love that you call that zero, because that's as far as I've gotten.
I mean, zero. Like you basically, dude, you wouldn't have been able to be like, oh, that guy's going to be a pro snowboarder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I should give up on my dreams now.
Then you got a couple years left, man. You definitely
unbelievable. Yeah, no, that's great. So you moved. What makes you decide to move to Whistler? Like
so I always riding with my dad and my uncles. Became friends with this guy Mark Woodward. We would board together as much as we could. We'd go on like hikes. We started throughout high school. We'd go up to Whistler on the weekends and we'd like rough it for fun. Even though we knew people that had places up here, and if we really pulled some strings, we probably could have like found places to sleep up here for fun. We'd like sleep in hotel lobbies and like sleep in his car, and like we had like a really fun time like doing the like snowboard ghetto thing that you were talking about with Mark Frank Montoya. Like, we wanted to be that, which is hilarious. These two kids from Vancouver, like one of them, like, you know, very well off city in Canada, and not to say we're from super well off families, but you know, if you're a snowboarder from Vancouver, you're not poor. Like we were doing okay, but we were like coming up here, telling our parents we were staying at a friend's cabin and just like roughing it.
I love it.
I'd already been up here, weekend warrior with my dad and stuff, but like coming up here with Mark and roughing it like that really made me like fall in love with like the snowboard culture and the kind of scene. And I was like, oh, that's like something I'd be interested in. Like it'd be fun to live up there. And then the deciding factor was both my parents and Mark's parents were having a divorce around the same time. So it was like the classic, like, you know, you've got your friend who's like going through the same shit as you, and we were both kind of like, all our friends are signing up for university and stuff, and we're like, this is like, what? This is what our parents don't even know what's up. Like, look at them, they're fucking up their marriage. They don't know what we're like, what we should be doing. Like, they don't even know how to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So that we like kind of stood together, and then we kind of, I don't even know who initially had the idea first, but we just kind of formed the plan together that like, let's not sign up for any universities. Let's go move to Whistler.
Right.
And so we just committed. Like, literally, me and him both worked at a full serve gas station in Vancouver for our last year of high school, and worked there all summer. And then come like September, we both just like packed a bag and moved up here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What year would that have been?
I graduated high school in 2006, so that would have been September 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. And how is Whistler 12 years ago? It's already pretty blown up. Like,
dude,
the housing crisis has been since the early 90s here, really.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like I kind of feel like I moved here in like a golden era.
Cool.
Because we were like looking at ads and like looking at housing options, and looking back, it wasn't that crazy. Like, there were a lot of rooms available for like $500 a month.
Cool.
in like shared houses.
Yeah.
But being a kid from high school, that's a lot of money. So
Yeah.
we were like, what else can we do? So he was like talking about like building like he was calling it a pueblo in quotations. He wanted to build like a pueblo in the woods somewhere, like try and find a zone where we could like make a little fort, tarp it. Like, Mark was like super into roughing it. Anyways, we had this plethora of ideas. What ended up coming to fruition was his cousin was living in the art barn, the Narcor house, and he was like, hey, there's like room in the basement, you guys can move in here. But
Sick.
yeah, it already, I guess Whistler already was kind of blown up back then, but man, 12 years does a lot. Like, Whistler was different when I first moved here.
Right.
Like, there were legitimate dead seasons. There was like a couple times a year where the town was a fucking ghost town, nothing was happening, and then there was like the Telus World Ski and Snowboard Festival, which was like, might as well have been like Pemberton Music Festival 5 years ago. Like, it was like always the coolest event. It was so insane. Like, big name bands, like pro snowboarders, big events. Like, there was, I don't know, it was like the golden years of Whistler, at least for me, because that was the first thing I saw. And I mean, a lot's changed since then. Maybe it was cooler before that. Maybe it was cooler when I was younger. But
I mean,
it
it depends.
epic.
There were a lot of dudes that moved out here and lived in the woods for a bit. That's something that there's a heritage of people that
Have done that.
have done it for a year or two, which is
Yeah.
badass. Geez, I mean, when I first rode here in the summer of, it would have been the winter, 93, 94. And then that following summer, we had friends that had a hotel room somewhere. We would just drive up and do 2 or 3 days in the summer.
Sick.
It was like having the mountain to yourself. Like, you would think it was busy because there were
You'd
20,
see people
20
on
30
the run
people.
with you.
Yeah, on the run with you. But it wasn't until the 2000s or later even, like around, after the 2000s, you'd come up in the summer and the park would fill up in this way that on busy days it would do this. There'd be like a crowd and you'd roll up and you'd have to stop at each feature and wait your turn until now you're at the front of the crowd.
Yeah.
And now you have to go.
Which is intimidating as fuck.
It's the worst.
I
It's
remember
so
hating that.
intimidating. But then those French guys would just blast past the crowd and just keep a flow line going.
There'd be a couple crews like that.
Yeah.
There'd be these little like bundles of riders. Like, it'd be like the French guys, and then there'd be like the Narcor crew, and then there'd be like the Sandbox crew.
Yep.
I remember seeing, like Mikey Pedersen and Rusty Ockenen and
Rad.
Mike Sollers before I knew any of those guys. And
Yeah.
it was intimidating as fuck.
Super intimidating.
Either being a weekend warrior your age or being like
Yep.
a newcomer to town like myself, and you're just.
Yep.
It was just so clicky. It was so clicky.
Very clicky.
And there was these little packs. And
Yeah.
everyone felt like they were like a part of something. And if you didn't have like your pack to latch onto, you were just like, oh.
Yeah, if you're up there with your regular buddies from Vancouver and you're like, we should go like those guys and just go around the line. Like, you'd do that once, then you'd case it, then someone would be like, hey, asshole,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Or wouldn't even have to say anything. They'd just give you a
no,
look or ride by you, and
do
you'd
it
just
yourself.
be like, oh,
you're right.
You'd
You're
put it on
absolutely
yourself.
Right. Yeah, you're totally right. People weren't mean. That's
No,
true.
it was
So
just an
around
energy.
that time, so around 2007, I started going to Timberline in the spring.
Yeah.
So down at Mount Hood, there's not that many people there. In the spring, the pass is $99 for unlimited until June 1st. And
that's insane.
Yeah, and their parks are really well maintained because they don't have 80,000 people a day hitting them.
Yeah.
This is crazy. So I would go down to Mount Hood and come back and go to Whistler and be like, okay, I'd rather drive 5 hours or 6 to go hit that and stay there and camp in the woods, which is free.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Then, drive 2 hours to get to like Intimidation Land.
So you didn't really feel the energy of Whistler didn't grab you when you moved out here. You weren't like, yeah, get me in there. You were kind of like,
scared the hell out of me.
Right.
Yeah, no, it really did. It really did put me in my place of like, oh, I'm just a lowly weekend warrior guy.
I guess I understand that.
It looked like a lot of work.
Too.
It looked like a lot of work to get to where they were.
It was and it is.
Yeah.
Like it definitely like. I just remember. Oh, nice! You can hear all the people. Are you picking up background noise? Good.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. I just remembered like everything from like making good friends here and like even just trusting people and like kind of building your crew. I guess it kind of was a lot of work. Like Whistler was and always has been pretty cliquey.
Yeah.
And there's always been like those core crews that kind of put out that vibe that is intimidating when you're a newcomer.
So intimidating. Yeah. Yeah. And that for you were like, I want to be a part of this, or I want to, obviously have the drive to get to the top of that chain.
I just wanted in right away. When I first moved here, I wasn't like, I'm going to be a pro snowboarder. I didn't even think I was good, but the idea was floating around in my head because, like I was telling you earlier, I grew up thinking I was going to be a pro surfer. Like my two biggest inspirations when I was like a young teenager were the Irons brothers, Bruce and Andy Irons. Because my grandparents had a house on Kauai, which is where they're from. So we go there all the time for summer vacation, and I just like loved it. But so when I moved here, it was like the idea of being a pro snowboarder was hovering around in my head, but it wasn't like I was full commit yet. It wasn't until like becoming kind of friends with Matt Beardmore, and he kind of like apprenticed me and took a liking to me, kind of took like the big brother role with me, and then like linking up with the Narcor guys and kind of starting to like develop my freestyle skills a little bit in the park. Yeah. It just kind of seemed a little bit more in reach, and I saw their lifestyle. I saw like them getting paid. I saw Beardmore making money. I saw him traveling all the time. I saw girls just obsessed with him, and I was like, this is fucking dope. Like that's when I was like, I want this. And I was intimidated, and it felt like a lot, but I was also kind of like, I was like, fuck it, what else am I going to do? Like I want to try this. This is
rad.
Like, let's give her.
What kind of board were you riding at that point?
So when I first moved here, I was riding hand-me-downs of my dad's. So actually hand-me-downs of my dad's and Yorley Rickers.
Oh, nice.
So the two snowboards I moved here with was a 156 Burton Balance.
Yeah.
And a 160 Burton Custom, way too big for me at the time.
Yeah,
that I got from Yorley Ricker. The Burton Balance I got from my dad. The Burton Custom I got from Yorley Ricker.
Rad.
And so I started like riding on those, like riding around the resort, filming clips with Narcor or whatever on those boards.
Wow, really?
Yeah, those are the two sticks.
Those are two pretty good sticks for if you're moving up here to have a little quiver.
Oh yeah, those are good. Those were good boards
because that Custom's a little stiffer, right? Like so that's good for those like solid days.
Yeah,
and the 56 is just an all around good freestyle board.
Yeah, it was a pipe board too, but it was like I've always liked a little bit of a stiffer freestyle board, and that I just remember really liking those two boards. And after that, I rode those, and then Burton Unink was a thing, and I was a huge fan of like DCP and Roman and Solberg and all those guys. So I paid for my first board.
Rad.
Myself. Like up until that point, like it was like always like hand-me-downs from my dad or presents or whatever. And so I paid for my first board, like my mid-season, my first year up here, and I bought a Burton Unink.
Sick.
And then I ran the warranty program for like another year. So I bought a Burton Unink thing, warranted, like blew an edge out, warranted it, got another 160 DCP Burton Unink. And then Matt Beardmore was like, "What the fuck are you doing riding Burtons? Like, I'll get you some atomics. I'll tell my team manager to throw in a board for you."
Yeah, was that Medill at that time?
Rob Medill.
Yeah,
Rob Medill.
Yeah, totally. And did you know him from at Grouse? Did you ever ride at Grouse? You didn't?
Not really. A little bit here and there, but it was like mainly Cypress, and then with a couple of days at Seymour.
Yeah.
I didn't start really riding at Grouse until I'd already lived in Whistler.
Right, because I still think of you as a Grouse because they did a bunch of,
They did a bunch
I
of
would
work with
see
me.
you on the TVs while we're waiting for the tram and all that shit.
Yeah, through
you were
like
part of the team.
Quicksilver and Alterna.
Yeah.
I became kind of like a grouse guy.
Yep.
So when I would ride it, once I lived up here, and I was riding for Quicksilver and filming for Alterna, anytime I'd go to the city, I'd ride grouse.
Right.
So that's kind of when all that came together.
Yeah, you were involved with building some stuff up there, and some special shoots and shit like
Exactly,
that. Making the mountain look really good.
Totally. And I remember being super proud of. I had this like Back 7 Japan light box ad at the top of the tram for like forever. It's so that was a sick ad. Dude. Yeah, I was pumped on that photo.
Yeah, that's a good photo.
But yeah, Rob Medill, I don't actually know if I ever, maybe I met him in crossing at a party or something, but yeah, so Beardmore was dealing with Rob, and he would just kind of he'd like throw an extra board in like every once in a while when Beardmore would get a package.
That's sick.
He'd be like, oh yeah, here's a smaller one,
Rob.
Here's a 156, like give it to Rasman.
That
and
is amazing.
I just was like, so that was my first like taste of being like, I'm getting free shit.
Like a setup, yeah.
Totally. And I wasn't sponsored, but I felt like I was. I'd steal big Atomic stickers from Matt and like slap them on the nose, and then eventually Beardmore was like getting me Drake and Northwave. So I was like getting Drake bindings and Northwave boots, and then same thing, like stickers on the board. Like I was just fucking so hyped. And then Von Zipper. I never even actually had a connection at Von Zipper. Like Risto didn't know me.
Yeah.
Wasn't sending me stuff. I just literally Matt would hand me goggles, and then I would take a big Von Zipper sticker and like slap it on my board.
I love that.
I was just so pumped. I was like, I'm not paying for gear. This is fucking crazy.
Yeah,
I'm getting free gear. I live in Whistler, and I'm paying $250 a month to live in the basement of the motherfucking art barn. It's like, this is cool.
So who's the first real sponsor? Did somebody take note that year or a year later, kind of thing?
When you say first sponsor, do you mean like real connection sending stuff just to me, or do you mean money?
Yeah. Let's go first, just real connection sending stuff to you.
Desiree Moore from Drake Northwave.
Sick.
So she was the first one that was like, because I met her, she came to Whistler, and Matt's like, oh, you should come out to Earl's, like we're like, my team manager from Drake Northwave is here, like Desiree, like you should actually meet her. She's been like putting extra stuff in my boxes for you for like a year or whatever it had been. And so I met her, and then got her number and her email, and then like anytime I would like get anything done, like get a photo shot in the park or like whatever I was doing, I would send it straight to her. And that was like kind of my first time dealing with a brand, dealing with a team manager. And so she was, I'm pretty sure, the first actual sponsor connection where I was like not dealing with Matt anymore, just like emailing her, and she'd send me boots and bindings.
Sick.
And then quickly after that, Gerhard Gross got me on Quicksilver.
Oh, wow.
So he had just gotten a job as Canadian team manager for Quicksilver in DC, and he put in the good word and got me on quick. And then so that was probably my first like real sponsor, because that came with no money the first year, but they sent me on a trip to Spain with Sandbox.
Sick.
So that was my first like film segment. I filmed in Spain for 2 weeks with Sandbox and had a little like mini part in their travel segment. And then the year after that, Gerhard's like, hey man, Quicksilver wants to get you on like an official contract. It's like $600 a month and like $3,000 travel budget. And I was like, holy fuck. That was crazy. That was a big deal.
Yeah, that's fun.
So yeah, Drake Northwave would be the first like actual connection to like felt like a real sponsor. Quicksilver was my first paying sponsor.
That's incredible. And so at that point, are you still riding Beardmore's Atomic stuff like that? What board would you ride in the Atomic line?
I wish I remember the names.
There was the Hatchet. Was the
the Triarch.
The Triarch. I do remember the Triarch.
I rode the Triarch strictly because I was a fan of Beardmore, and Beardmore rode the Triarch.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know if it was a good board.
It was a really good board for Whistler for sure. I could see that. It had a lot of
stompy, wide, stiff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would get like a 155 Triarch and a 159 Triarch, and that would be my quiver. And again, not sponsored. Like this wasn't like the Drake Northwave thing where Rob Medill wasn't communicating with me at all. Beardmore would just ask him to throw an extra board or two in his package. And so I was riding an Atomic Triarch in Spain, that Sandbox trip, and
who was on the Sandbox trip with you? Who would have been the filmers?
So that was Clayton Larson.
Yep.
John Scarth shooting photos.
Sick.
Gerhard Gross there as like organizing the trip, because it was like a DC trip plus Quicksilver rider. Like I was the one Quicksilver guy.
Yeah.
And then Brendan Keenan, Andrew fucking Jeeves, and Ryan Teeney. And this is Jeeves is like super young. Jeeves is like 17.
Yeah.
I'm 19.
Wow.
This is when he had just filmed his Time Well Wasted video part, which was like a huge, like way ahead of its time video part for Andrew. So Andrew was like on top of the world. And even Ryan Feeney was like one of the biggest snowboarders in Australia at that time. So I'm like with some like pretty young rock stars, and I'm just like this new kid who's like not getting paid yet, just frothing to have a paid for snowboard trip, right?
Right.
Oh, that trip was sick.
That is sick. And so once you start getting paid, so you're getting paid by Quicksilver probably for a season before you pop onto a full board sponsorship.
I go to Spain with Sandbox. I film for them for 2 weeks there, riding atomic boards, Drake Northwave, again, stickers all over the board, but no legit sponsorship other than Quick. Quick's not paying me yet. They just paid for me to go on this trip.
Yeah.
I did pretty decent, I guess, that they were happy enough to like get me on a real contract. Mm-hmm. So I signed the contract with Quick, like pretty sure, $600 a month, $3,000 travel budget, 1 year contract. But I was just frothing. And then 2 weeks after I signed that contract, Carlo, this is in the fall, Carlo Wine from Alternative Films calls me up, and he's like, hey man, this is Carlo calling. Like, we've met a few times. Like, you were down at the office once, because I'd had like a shot or two in Beardmore's part. Beardmore threw him in there the year before, like just kind of cameo for me. Wow. And so he's like, I met you. I think you came in the office. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like, fuck, of course I know who you are, Carlo. Like, what's up, man? And he's like, I've been talking to Quicksilver, and they're pretty into buying for movies $10,000, and they're into throwing some money down to get you to film for us this year. So Quicksilver,
wow,
fucking pretty much all because of Gerhard, who passed away recently, and like threw a Hail Mary for me, and
That's
was
incredible.
Like, this kid, like, I don't know what they saw in me back then, but maybe they saw something, but maybe I'm being hard on myself by saying I didn't have anything going, but I really don't think I had much to offer. But they saw something, and they were like, Gerhard convinced them to put $10,000 down for me to film for Alterna. And that's like pretty much how it all started.
Yeah.
And I filmed for Alterna that year, and filmed my first like little segment for them.
So all through this learning curve, are you learning how to be a pro snowboarder by watching the guys in your house and how they're doing it?
Totally.
Yeah.
That was a big part of also, I think, what got me to where I am, and what I think maybe some other kids who have the talent but don't have that didn't get to make it, or didn't get the opportunity. And I'm fortunate to have that, because I grew up really quickly because I was 17 years old, and I moved into this house with a bunch of like 24 to 28 year olds.
Yep.
And so I watched how they all acted. I watched how Beardmore interacted with the sponsors. He was a pretty like bold personality and pretty cocky, so he would like openly, everyone would be watching a movie at the house, and he would answer a call from his team manager and just fully not leave the room and just have a call with his team manager like right there. So I really got to like just kind of see how he dealt with everything. And he took a liking to me, and like me and him got pretty close. And so I'd pick his brain. When I got comfortable with him, I'd ask him a lot of questions about how it all worked, and like what? Like, well, do you have an agent? No. Okay. Like, what do you mean? You like, what? He's like, well, you gotta like constantly email them, and like, you don't get something if you don't ask for it, and like, blah 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 blah, and like, be on it. Like, send them what you're doing. And yeah, I just like watched and learned, and I was just like a sponge. I was like soaking up information. I like watched how Beardmore did it. I watched how like JF410 like did it, and I always really liked JF, but I also like saw the mistakes he made. I was like, oh, Beardmore's doing it better, like I like felt like I got to like learn from everyone's successes and mistakes of that little area. How
many people would you say like proportionately had representation? Like how many Canadian pros had like an agent that was working for them?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, because it's just dawning on me now, like there's a lot more of that kind of going on in the States. But it also seems like you kind of get to a certain level, and then people come out of the woodwork and go, hey,
look for you.
You're underperforming, or you're getting less money. I imagine that's how it works.
Yeah.
Like if you're already making the money, there's no reason to get on representation. So somebody's got to come to you and go, hey, like, we could blow you up. I think. Jeez, I don't know.
If I had to, I don't know the actual answer to that, so I'm just going to, if I had to guess.
Sure,
I'm just gonna, if I had to guess, not that many Canadian pro snowboarders had agents. Like I don't think Devin Walsh had an agent. I know Matt Beardmore never did. He did it all himself, and that was something he was proud of. Maybe some of them back then did, but I like you said, it was more of an American and a Euro thing to have agents.
Right.
But moving forward now, a lot of contest snowboarders have agents. Like Darcy Sharp has an agent.
Yep.
Mark McMorris obviously has an agent.
Obviously,
like a lot of them
yeah.
have agents. And so I just watched, like, I never thought I needed one, and I don't think I ever did need one. I just like watch Beardmore do everything, and I remember even talking to agents at one point when I like kind of slowly started to blow up, and basically I had an agent just tell me like, you just don't really have enough going on to need me, and I was like, ooh, harsh, but okay, like,
right.
Fair enough. And
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always thought the agent thing was weird, man.
It's super weird. It's always been weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know that Kearns did it for a while with Roberta, but they had U.S. people, I think. Can't remember who they had.
I think if like,
maybe
if an agent could help you get like outside snowboard stuff, like if you just like focus on what you got to do, and maybe the agent can just help you understand confusing parts of the contract. Like some brands have super corporate contracts, some brands have more understandable contracts. Like my contract with Mervyn is like pretty simple. It's like 4 pages long. It's pretty easy to understand. There's no hidden read between the lines stuff in there that I would need an agent to dissect for me. But then there are, like, I remember when I rode for Quicksilver, the contract was like 14 pages long.
Wow.
A lot of like legal shit in there that I didn't understand. And
yeah.
So I think that would be the benefit of an agent, like helping a snowboarder who doesn't want to pay attention to that stuff, like know that he's safe, know that they're not like fucking him over in any weird ways, and then also helping him get like work and sponsors outside of the little bubble that he's aware of.
Right.
Like
right.
5 Gum or like Advil or like fucking whatever, Fuel TV, you know, shit like that. Or like,
sure.
Hey, we got this Jeep commercial. They're going to pay you $10,000 to work for them for 5 days, you know, shit like that.
Yeah.
So I think that is maybe where having an agent would have been good.
Makes sense. Sure.
But I think you can do all the like inner snowboard stuff yourself. It's such a small industry. Everyone becomes friends and knows each other anyways.
How does the Mervyn thing happen? Because I'm a huge fan of Mervyn. Just Pete and Mike, like,
yeah, beauties.
A lot of people don't realize how much snowboarding owes to those two.
Dude, Mike is a mad scientist that is truly like, he's such an eccentric, interesting human.
It makes for perfect marketing.
Yeah,
like
they've taken it and run with it now.
Yeah.
But they're taking it and running with Mike's personality.
Good.
When that's just like, yeah, it's awesome, as they should. But that's just like how he was. I feel like they were just these two dudes, like Mike and Pete. They were just making snowboards, and they were even making surfboards way back in the day. They just weren't selling them.
Yeah.
They were always like shaping surfboards. And so how that all started was, so my dad was like an early semi-pro snowboarder, right? Like he helped like legalize snowboarding on Cypress. He became like, he was super fond of Baker and the crew down there, so he was always going to Baker and riding with the Baker crew. He'd even like done some trips with like Craig Kelly, I think, and he's rode with Damian Sanders before. And so he never really like blew up in that area, but like he's, you know, like Amy and Gwen Howitt from Baker, like they know my dad well. Like he's done the bank slalom like a lot of times.
That's amazing.
So back in the day, he had some connections with Mervyn. He was Pete and Mike hooked him up. They were sending him boards. I don't know if it was GNU or LibTech he was riding for, or maybe he rode for both of them at some point. And I remember I was getting these Atomic boards, and I thought it was so sick that I was getting free boards from Atomic, even though looking back it was hilarious. It was just like a rep throwing extra boards in the box because Beardmore told them to, because Beardmore was their biggest rider, and he's like, yo, throw extra boards in for Chris.
Yeah. But
I was like, I'm getting free boards. I'm fucking good, yo.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And I just remember my dad being like, hey, like LibTech, GNU, like, what do you think about them? Like, I have Pete Sari's number. Like, I was thinking about reaching out to him and blah, 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 blah. And this was kind of before LibTech's rebirth, I want to call it, I guess. They never really went anywhere, but, you know, they had a bit of a lull there, and then Travis Rice came on and shit really blew up again for them.
Was it during those years that they were doing the bananas, or was it the bananas?
This is before bananas.
The bananas blew it up. Oh yeah, because first Travis board that I had was just traditional camber.
Yeah, totally. I think like Travis getting on Lib after Rosignol was he on Lib during the community project, or was he Rosignol still?
Oh, I can't remember.
anyways, I remember them. They never went anywhere, but they definitely had a bit of like a lull. Like they weren't.
Yeah, between Jamie and Travis kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like Jamie had kind of like moved on a little bit. Like he wasn't like he was just a little bit older. He kind of like graduated from being like the it dude, and there was a lull between Jamie and Travis, where Mervyn kind of like didn't really have as much hype around them as they do now.
Totally.
And so they weren't on my radar. I thought Atomic was dope. I thought Endeavor was really dope, and I just like other board companies. And so when my dad mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, like I think I heard something about like Travis Rice just signing, and I knew who Travis was from the community project. I think that was the most recent thing I saw of him at that time. And he was like, yeah, I'm gonna hit up Pete and tell him that you're living in Worcester now, and like see if he can get you some boards. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, Dad, like whatever happens. And he went down. My dad went down to the factory and like visited with Pete and Mike, and they're old friends. They connected, hung out, and my dad's like, hey, my son's living in Worcester now, and he's filming some snowboarding and blah blah blah, and like I want to get some boards from him. And they like, Pete made it like very clear to my dad. He's like, oh, that's really cool, Rudy, but like just make sure your son knows that we're not sponsoring him. Here's 2 boards for him. Here's a GNU Rider's Choice and a LibTech TRS, but make sure he's aware that this isn't a sponsorship. Like, we're just giving him boards because we know you, Rudy.
Right.
And so
that's insane.
So I was like they made that clear to him.
Yeah.
And he had to like awkwardly like tell me, like, he's like, oh, they said this, but they don't know that. Proud Dad, he's like, they don't know like your skill level yet, Christopher, so don't worry. But I just remember being like, oh, that's kind of a slap in the face, but like whatever, I'll try these boards out, and liking them right away. So for the very first alternative movie I filmed for, Electro, I filmed that whole movie on 2 boards, 1 GNU and 1 LibTech that I got from LibTech as like a pity, as a pity giveaway.
My dad knows somebody.
Exactly, as like my dad knows somebody.
That's a great story, though. That's amazing.
And then through Beardmore, through just like basically being like watching how he did everything, I learned that you got to stay on your sponsors. And so I just got Pete's email, and then he like fucking sent me to Zach Leach, because Zach Leach was the team manager at the time. Like I could tell Pete was like, oh, I don't fucking deal with this guy. Yeah. Here's Zach Leach's email. He's our team manager. So I just was like on Zach Leach, like constantly emailing him everything I did. Like anytime I had a photo shot of me, whether it was in the park or whatever, and obviously in the backcountry because I was filming a video part, I was like sending him absolutely everything.
Rad.
And eventually the relationship slowly turned into like Zach Leach was sending me boards. Like I was actually getting boards from LibTech. And I remember at one point he's like, oh, you rode like a GNU and a Lib last year. Like, what company do you think you connect more with? And like, what do you want to ride? And I was like, oh, it's like LibTech. It's like I kind of felt like GNU was a little bit more like psychedelic and weird, and LibTech was like a bit more punk rock.
Sure, yeah,
and I was like, I want to ride for LibTech.
Yeah, Lib was always kind of the number one company, and then they sort of bought back GNU. GNU had gone like so kooky.
Yeah,
and then
totally
they sort of kept that kook vibe in there just on purpose, like they were
to be funny,
like just making fun of themselves.
For sure,
they made excellent boards, but it was just a little tongue in cheek. Their boards were always named weird things and
for sure
silly
funny
colors and funny graphics on purpose.
So I think because of that, I don't know. I just thought LibTech was cooler, and then obviously like Travis Rice was on my radar at that point because of community project. So I was like, I want to ride LibTech, and so then it graduated into that. Zach Leach started sending me lib boards, and I'd get like 2 a season or maybe 3 a season if I was lucky, and I just stayed on them, man. I was like throughout the years filming for Alterna, like never any money from LibTech. All like any type of sponsor money came from like Quicksilver. Fuck, I think it was like just Quicksilver for a few years. Yeah,
Isn't
it was like
Quicksilver at some point? Quicksilver is the parent company of LibTech, though.
Yes, true, but that had nothing to do.
They ran separately.
They ran separately. Yeah. So, but that was. I mean, maybe it was part of why Zach started sending me boards. Maybe he was like, "Oh, you're riding for Quick, and you're on contract with Quick, and you're filming for this Canadian company called Alterna."
No, he just saw he just saw your stuff and was like, "Yeah, we got to keep giving this guy stuff."
Yeah, probably. He's like, "Oh, this is free exposure. This kid's working hard."
Wow, this is epic. Yeah, yeah. You're doing more than some of our pros, man. Like,
yeah, let's send him stuff.
How many do you want? 3 boards? And you're like, yeah. And he's like, yes,
totally. So Zach was like super good to me. He was like for how busy he was and for how large of a team he was running. He was like he'd respond to my emails pretty on time, and he'd get me boards when I needed them. And then one year I got invited to on like a LibTech team trip, and it was at Crystal Mountain in Washington. And Zach was like, "Hey, like Rasman, I know it's last minute, but like we're having this team shoot at Crystal. You should drive down here like tomorrow and be here for the week, like long weekend or whatever."
Yeah.
And so I went down there and like met the whole team. Like everyone was there, like Lando, like Jamie, pretty much everyone was there except for Travis. Travis wasn't around there. Like Blair Habenik, like all those guys. Blake Paul had just got on Gnu, and he was super young. He would have been like 18 when I went down there. I was like 20 years old.
Cool.
And after that trip, I rode really well at Crystal. Tim Zimmerman shot a bunch of photos of me. Scott Sullivan was there too. Everyone said like really nice things to me after. They were like super impressed with my riding, and they didn't know who I was, and they're like, "Oh, dude, like you're sick. Like give us a call. We should shoot sometime." Blah blah blah. After that, the year after that is when I got on contract with Lib.
Sick.
And I was like actually on the team.
That's epic. So you've been with them. That's your only paid board sponsor.
Yeah,
the whole way through your career.
The only board company that's ever given me money is
that's really great.
LibTech. Yeah,
that's a really good company to be involved with.
So even though I rode Burtons growing up because my dad always liked Burton and Yurley Ricker, and then had the Atomic thing because of Beardmore, pretty much the only company that I've ever like represented is Mervyn, and their boards are really, really good. That's the thing, is that once you get on those, you got to be stoked, right? And that's the thing, and I will. Obviously, everyone that rides for companies, it's part of your job to promote what you're riding. But I will fucking say, LibTechs are awesome. Everyone wants to ride a LibTech. Everyone knows they're good. Everyone knows the company's cool, and you're supporting like a rad brand when you do. And dude, they just fucking work good. Like they're rad boards. I really like them. Yeah. And they make surfboards and skateboards too. So come on.
Yeah, totally. Do you start your own relationship with Pete and Mike at some point? Outside
more so with
Pete,
dad. Mike. Yeah, with both of them. I go down a couple times and visit the factory when I can. I mean, honestly, I should go down there more for how close they are, but it's that whole like they're on the peninsula. You got to take a weird ferry, and it's like kind of a mission to get down there. But yeah, I've gone down there a couple times, and I visit Mike, and he always chats my ear off about like the next cool like mad scientist thing he's working on. Like I remember going down there like right before he started making the surfboards, and he just like was frothing, talked my ear off for like an hour about his like secret materials he's using and how he's like thinking about like collabing with Matt Biolos from Lost and like all this stuff. And then my relationship with Pete kind of developed more on a business side, like kind of when I started getting a bit more serious with Lib, and he was like, "Yeah, we want to like move forward with you and like run ads and like do this properly." Like that's so I deal with Pete more than I deal with Mike,
right?
And Jesse Burtner. So like Zach Leach left Lib and went and worked for Oakley, was team manager for them, and when he left, Jesse Burtner took over team manager position. So I've been dealing with Jesse for like 6 years now.
So this sounds like you moved to Whistler. You probably worked as a dishwasher at night for the first year.
Houseman at the Delta Hotel.
There you go.
So I plunged a fair amount of toilets, cleaned the pool a lot.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, some puke to clean up.
Yeah. Amazing.
Dude, I worked full-time in the summer, part-time in the winter at this Delta Hotel, all the way up until the Snowboard Canada movie, like, Glimpse. So all my alternate video parts, I worked part-time throughout the winter filming those. Yeah. Like 3 to 11 shift, like 3 times a week. So there'd be days where I'd be out sledding, and I'd like, looking back, this is so sketchy and not safe that I'd do this, but I'd be somewhere deep in the backcountry, and I'd be like, "Hey boys, I got to bounce," and I'd sled out of the zone alone to go to work. Wow. And then the first year, I was like, "Okay, I'm making enough money to not like work in the winter. Like I'll just work in the summer." That was the first year we started Man Boys, so 2014.
Holy shit!
So only 4 years ago was the first time I was like, "Wow, I'm doing okay."
Well,
Stop working.
I think a lot of snowboarding pros, and some of them listen to this for sure. I don't know if they ever get to that point. You know what I mean? Where they can stop working in the summer because life's expensive. You're living in a mountain town.
I still work in the summer. I meant stop working in the winter.
You still do, just for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you buy a place up here? Is that
your
personal? You're just.
I'm saving right now. I'm like I said. I mean, I only started not working in the winter at 25 years old. So I never had a blow up year. I really slowly clawed my way to the top or whatever.
Well, this is a blow up year for you, I would say.
I feel like it is. I feel like I'm having like a late blow up year now. So it's like, so I guess you could say this is my blow up year, super late bloomer. But so I just was like, I'm gonna keep on fucking trying. And like I remember making this promise to myself, like when Matt Beermore got out of snowboarding, one of my biggest idols, like left the snowboard industry after the 2008 recession happened. The snowboard industry got fucked. Like all that shit happened, and he was out. And I remember saying, I will stop when a year comes that I start making less money than I did the year before. So my promise I made to myself is like I either maintain or make more money every year. Otherwise, I'm out.
Wow, that's
and so it's just kind of every year it was like
so you got to hustle
a little bit more. So like hustling and
that's a tough. Honestly, this is one of the toughest subjects to talk with any, especially Kate. You're the youngest guy I've ever had on the show, right?
That's epic.
Jess was the second youngest, and so most of the people I'm talking to, if they're milking a bit of a career now. Mm-hmm. I mean, not milking a bit of a career. There's Jeremy Jones, he's still making money.
Yeah.
Jamie Lynn's still making money, but it's like the industry was so harsh to people that weren't hustling.
Yeah, dude.
And even to some that were. You know what I mean? When you lock in with...
Dude, it's almost harsher now, though.
Is it? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know enough. I'm not a snowboard history nerd.
Right.
I know, like, I've met so many of my idols. Like, I've met and hung out with Jamie Lynn so many times. Like, I've hung out with Nicholas Mueller. Like, I'm like homies with Travis Rice now. Like, I've met so many of my idols, Terry A. Hawkinson, but I've never had those conversations with them of, like, how was it back then?
Huh.
So I don't know the answer to that. But right now what I'm seeing is, like, this really weird limbo where all the brands aren't really sure how to, like, spend their money and market themselves because of social media. And I hate to like bring it to the Instagram thing, but it's like everyone just needs like quick gratification.
No, that's
like,
what it is.
Fuck, like fast, where
it
used to be like quality over quantity. And maybe there was a point in snowboarding where it was too much like that, and it let pro snowboarders kind of be pieces of shit and party too hard because they could just like work really hard for 2 months, film a video part, and then fuck around for the rest of the year because it was like that. But I don't know. Now there's. I wish there was just an in between of that and this, because this is too much the other way.
Right.
This is like people are. I feel like brands are just putting money in the wrong places sometimes.
Well, I don't pay that close attention to it, but I definitely have heard through podcasts mostly that a lot of the people that go to the Olympics don't even have board sponsors. They're not even really sponsored by snowboarding. They're sponsored by Trident or the country that they live in. I don't know.
A lot of them aren't even getting paid. There's riders in the Olympics like trying triple corks probably that don't really get money.
That's so weird to me.
Yeah.
It went away from, because when I was working at the shop, you could make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. We heard Jody interview Romain, and he was making $30,000 a month, dude.
Yeah,
from one sponsor.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure Terry had some years like that too.
And do you remember? Did you listen to our EJack interview?
If I did, it was when it first came out.
EJack, we got real with Eric, and like he was talking about his early days when he was on Quick, and he's like, yeah, and I wasn't making a ton of money, but I was doing pretty good. Like I was making like $60,000 a year. So he's making like $60,000 a year when he was like 16 years old, and back then that like wasn't that good. Right. So anyways, to circle back to the start of how this like loop got going is I was a late bloomer in the snowboard industry. I've kind of clawed my way to the top. I've never lost. People keep on. I've had people asking me for like 5 years straight now, like, what's next? Like, what are you going to do now? Like, you've done it all. And I'm like, I have not done it all. Like, not even close. So I have a lot more that I want to do. But as far as like the financial question goes, I'm kind of just getting my shit together now.
Yeah, right.
Like I'm just getting into a place where I'm like, okay, now I'm getting comfortable. Now I'm saving.
Cool.
And I don't own a house here. I'm still renting.
Where does Man Boys come from? Because that came out of like a void that was happening in snowboarding at that time. Like, because I'm an old guy and I stopped watching videos and stopped going to premieres and stopped really caring.
Yeah.
Because I get that Instagram fix, and honestly, I wish it wasn't. I got too much from Instagram. You know what I mean?
It was a really cool thing when it started,
Yeah.
and then it just turned into this ambassador thing and constant gratification, content.
Totally.
And made it work. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the first time I saw Man Boys, I was like, wow, this is like if Wildcats just kept going and got younger. You know what I mean? This is like this is like the fun part of snowboarding.
Yeah.
Where you wish you were there, because a lot of videos you don't wish you were there. You wish, like, you're like, oh, this is neat to watch, but God, I would not do that.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel that with your guys' stuff too, because obviously you guys are doing insane things.
I know what you mean, though.
You make it
you feel
fun, though.
Yeah. Well, okay. So how Man Boys started? The name Man Boys is from like Robin Taylor and Mikey HK's like Crapnado thing that they had going on, where like Robin Taylor was making short films for Whistler's 72-hour film festival every year, and it was like Robin Taylor, Mikey HK, Andre Benoit, and they just like ride the park together and make these little snowboard edits and throw them on crapnedo.com, and they called themselves the Man Boys. And so moving forward, when like Rusty and Sollers moved here and started filming for Sandbox, they became friends with Robin. Jody and I were a little bit younger, so Jody and I moved to the same year, but didn't become friends right away. I linked up with the Narcor guys and the Alterna guys. Jody linked up with the Sandbox crew and the Crapnedo guys, and that was just their crews.
Yep.
Matt Belziel got on Quicksilver in 2010. I had already been on Quicksilver for like a year and a half, or like maybe 2 years at that point. And we did this trip to New Zealand together. Spent a month in New Zealand with Quick, and I became really good friends with Matt. And so through that, started filming and riding with Matt a lot. And then filmed my last Alterna segment. That was like the last Alterna movie they ever made, 13 O'Clock. Then had 2 years for the Snowboard Canada movie, like Relax and Glimpse. And then there was just this kind of like weird limbo in Canadian snowboarding, where there was like not really many production companies. Like MacDog wasn't making movies anymore. Absinthe was, but Sandbox and Alterna weren't making movies. Like there was like nothing going on, and it was like really not looking good for Canadian filmmaking. And so Rusty Ockenden and Mark Sollers were communicating with each other, and they were like this is bullshit. Like, why do we need like a middleman to go tell us who to film for? Like, we have the resources. Like, let's start a production company and let's just film with our friends. Like, let's film with who we like to hang out with, and do it here, because Whistler's the best place in the world. Everybody travels here to film. We live here. Let's like do it here. And at this point, I'm just associates with Rusty, Jody, and Mark. The only person I'm like close with is Belziel. So I catch wind that they're doing this through Belziel and through Nate Laverty. Nate Laverty filmed the Snowboard Canada movies, and they had chose to film the first year of Man Boys. And I hit up Matt and Nate, and I was like, I want in. Like,
rad.
Like, what the fuck? Like, I want in. What are you guys doing? And they're kind of like, I don't know. And like I said, I wasn't good friends with the rest of your Mark back then. So they were like humming and hawing about even like letting me in. Probably Jody especially, because Jody's a very strong, like bold opinion person.
Sure.
I'm sure I'd love to know what they were saying behind my back. Like looking back, I should probably ask them that. Like, what were you guys saying about me back then? Because like we weren't homies back then.
Yeah.
But I just like pushed, and I was like, yo, let me in. I know you guys are starting this crew, and you want to make a web series this year, and I'll show you what I can fucking do. Like, I was like, let me in.
What other web series existed at that point?
Cooking with Gas.
Yep.
A couple brands maybe did some this was the start of the web series.
Yeah.
They'd been the thing for like maybe 2 seasons tops.
Sure.
Pretty new. There for sure was some other noteworthy ones going on, but this was definitely like early in the web series thing. This is when they were hot.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that they were doing a web series and it was those guys, I was like, I want in. And like I said, I was associates and rode the park with all the other ones, only friends with Matt and Nate. So Matt Belziel and Nate Laverty vouched for me, got me in.
Sweet.
And boom, I just hit up my sponsors, got money for this project to help pay for the filmers and whatever the buy-in was, and then just started traveling and filming with these guys. And
amazing. Within
like a year or two, clicked really well with like Sollers and Rusty and Jody, and just slowly became like actual really good friends with them. But yeah,
rad.
That's how the Man Boy started. It was basically Mark and Rusty being like, let's make a production company that is ours, so we're not filming for someone else's thing, and let's just film with friends. And then I think when you are friends, and you're traveling together with the same people all year and just in the mountains together, and then you live in the same town all year, not just all season. So you're like hanging out in the winter, hanging out in the summer, like you're doing everything together. Like we just became really good friends. Like you're partying together, you're working together, like you're doing everything together. Eventually that's going to translate in snow footage. Like there's just going to be a feel and an energy, whether it's like a lifestyle shot or like something funny happening. Like you can just tell when people are not awkward around each other. So I think what like connected with the public with Man Boys right away was people were just like, those guys are having fun.
Totally.
They're friends and they're enjoying themselves, and we weren't taking ourselves too seriously. And for the first couple of years, we had Robin Taylor playing around with like some like random weird skits, like short film style goofy stuff. We were just like being idiots, like just being weird and not giving a fuck. And I think people liked that. There was like a lot of, in 2014, which is the first year of the Man Boys, there was a lot of like serious high production snowboarding going on.
Yeah.
Like, that's all. I think Art of Flight came out around that time too.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, I don't know, I feel like we did it at the right time. It was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you there. Also, I'm realizing now that you're talking about like the friendships were real, and also you aren't traveling outside of your home. You're comfortable in your house.
Totally.
You're like in your backyard with your buddies, and that comes out in all the, like, that's what it was, the connection. Because like if you're watching a That's It, That's All, Art of Flight especially, or depth perception, or not
fourth phase.
You're watching Fourth Phase and you're going, wow, this isn't a bunch of homies at home. These are guys traveling around,
stressing about the fucking hundreds of thousands of dollars they've spent.
Yeah, the helicopters filming helicopters, and just like this unbelievable life where it's refreshing to see Man Boy stuff.
Yeah, and like, like you said, it's not to say that like the tricks we're doing and the features that we're hitting and the places that we're going are relatable, because I know that like
they're not.
The only reason we can do that is because we have supporting sponsors. That's the only reason we can afford sleds and afford to spend our whole winter doing that. I understand that, but I think the like charisma and the personality that we're like carrying with it is something that people can relate to, and we're not trying to be super like epic and crazy. It's just like fucking goofy. And
there is a part of watching somebody who's paid to snowboard jet set around the world that is kind of like, you sort of feel bad for them. You know what I mean? You kind of feel bad. This guy's not at home and having fun. He's out and he's stressing and he's doing a thing in a spot where he's never been before, as opposed to like there's a relaxed mode that you guys are in. Actually, okay, sorry, that's the thing. Sorry, I lost my track there when I said the dead horse thing. Here's the real deal. What I was thinking was...
I do like what you said, though, for the record.
You don't want to, as a human being watching snowboarding, I don't aspire to travel around the world and be away from my family. But I do aspire to have good friends and go out to a fucking cool spot. Like, and because be on your sleds.
It's more obtainable.
Yeah, and totally, you got to sled back by yourself when the sun is waning to go do your job. I can relate to that. That's like what everybody does. Everybody goes and snowboards in their spare time and does their work and family shit around that shit. But you're really alive when you're out there with your buddies and you're just having a good time. And that's what Man Boys brought to, like, the first ones were, the web series was like on Transworld, right?
Yeah, and the first season was kind of a poor start to the season, the 2014 year. So we hit the panic button and drove to Cook City, Montana. So our web series started off in Cook City. That was our first time being there. But then the rest of the series from like mid-January on was all Whistler.
Rad.
And we've and then 2015 was kind of a hard year too. Well, actually 2015 was, since I've lived in Whistler, was like the worst season. So that was the year we traveled most. But pretty much other than that, we like filmed most of our stuff here. We do like a trip to Japan here or there, like maybe a Europe trip, more just like to mix it up and have some different footage.
Sure.
Or we do what we call like the BC trifecta. It's like Whistler, Revelstoke, Stewart.
Rad.
You do that triangle, like depending on what conditions are doing. And it's like you said, man, we're comfortable here, and it's not that we don't know how to find spots in other places. It's that this place is actually just really fucking good, and it's nice to work your ass off all day and have a long day, and then go home to like your own bed and like your own closet full of food, and like make like a proper meal, and then you can make your lunch the next day.
Have a girlfriend. That's something that comes up a lot on the Man Boys podcast, is how difficult it is to have girlfriends and travel around, right?
Dude, it is.
Yeah, no,
they don't like it.
No,
they don't. It sounds all romantic and sexy when I'm dating this pro snowboarder guy, but then all of a sudden the reality kicks in. It's like, wait, you're never fucking here.
Right.
Like, even if you are here, even if you're like in Whistler, like you're not here.
Busy.
Busy too, riding the hill, filming, whatever it is. But like, I mean, like your mind, like my girlfriend that I have now, she's awesome. I love her. She's understands me so well now, but like she's like, right now I'm in the point, cause like the season's just getting started. She can tell like I have a lot of shit going on, and sometimes she'll just say like, you're not here. Like my mind's always zipping around somewhere.
Yeah, of
thinking,
course.
What's the next move? What's the next thing I got to do? Like, where are we going next? What do I want to do with my year? Like, what are we doing with Man Boys? Like, what's the next interview I got to do? Whatever. Like, I'm always like somewhere else, and I think it's really hard for a girl to.
You guys beat up on yourselves a lot on the podcast. Oh, now here we are talking about our girlfriends again. But I'm like, I think that's what people want to hear. I personally, like, I kind of like it. Yeah, because not just kind of like it. I really like it. Because, everybody struggles with their relationships. You know, whether you have one or you're trying to get one, it's pretty hard to get a good relationship going if you're not home very often.
For sure. And
then it's hard to maintain one if you're not home very often, obviously.
Yeah.
So, like, I kind of like that real talk that you guys get into. I also like the idea.
I'm stoked to hear that.
Yeah, I like the idea that, again, same Man Boys vibe. Like, people come here to ride and film. Mm-hmm. They should be on your podcast 100% of the time. You should have. You should, but I know how much time it takes and effort. It's kind of a pain in the ass.
Sometimes I feel like we just need a better system. Like I like this little thing you have here. We've been plugging our mics into a computer, and we always deal with
one
weird.
of these.
That's fucking.
I'll leave you this one. Just plug your mics into this.
You don't need to leave me that one. What do you got to use it?
This is my backup. I had another backup I gave to Jess because
we'll just send me. Let me know what that is. Send me, and we'll just order one. I don't want to take your backup because that thing is good for a walk and
you're
record.
Right. Okay, thanks.
You need that. But let me know what that is.
I'll send you the specs on it because that's the one that you want to get. Look on Craigslist.
Okay, yeah, and I'll hustle and bustle.
And get one. Because it just changes how easy it is, because that just plugs into a.
Well, that's just way easier than we're always dealing. So how we do it is we like plug the two mics into the computer and go off GarageBand, and we're constantly dealing with like, oh fuck, like weird shit happens, and it just doesn't like having like two USBs running in. But this is easy because it goes straight to it. Memory card. And
and you could put two more mics in here, and two more of these setups. You could have 4 people around this table, plus you could have a fifth if you wanted remote.
That's epic.
It's sick.
But yeah, so going back to what you're saying about like everybody coming here and film. I'm sorry, knocked down my empty cans there. Everybody coming here and wanting to film because it's the Mecca. What do you think about? Like we are always getting pushed to like go somewhere, like go elsewhere, like film in different places. Like you guys need to like change up what you're doing. And like I know Absinthe is like Hosinick doesn't love using Whistler footage, for example.
Really?
I've heard that.
Okay.
I haven't asked him personally, but
sure.
He likes to minimize Whistler footage because he just feels like Whistler's played. But don't you think it's kind of a weird thing that like just because we live here, like people come here to film?
I think it's a really weird thing. But also when Dano was talking about like he kind of looks at the snowboard industry from this kind of, you know, I don't want to say snooty down his nose kind of thing because he's not that at all.
Yeah.
But he can't understand how anyone would film or shoot the same trick that someone else did at a spot. Like once that spot's had that
Dano
trick done,
said that?
Yeah,
because it's not skating.
Once that spot is done for that trick, why would you go do that there? And I don't agree. I never agreed.
It's so different than skating.
Sure,
skate spots don't move. It's like concrete, and I can respect that for skating. I think that's a super cool part about skating. But like, guess what? Backcountry, and Dano should know this. I know he does know this. Backcountry spots change every fucking year.
Right.
The wind changes them. The landing is either steeper or flatter.
Right.
The gap's either bigger or smaller. Like, they're fucking different every year.
He's going to be listening to this. I can't speak for him.
It's Dano, for the record, Dano, I love you. I'm just saying this.
We love you, buddy.
All the listeners. Everything changes every year.
Yeah.
And how about this for size? Skaters can take 2 to 3 years and then boom, all of a sudden at any point in the year, because the time to buy skate product is not restricted to a specific 2 months. It's 12 months of the year. So at any point in the year, they can take 3 years off or take 3 years to film a video part and then just drop a fucking amazing video part in a movie, or now an amazing online part that they spent 3 years filming. Snowboarders are expected every year to just have content.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's the fact that we have pressure on us to constantly be putting stuff out year after year after year, and the season is short. So it's like, oh fuck, it's good now. And I've been trying to do a switchback 7 on this, but I've tried 4 times and I can't land it, and the landing's fucked. I'll just do a cab 5 just to get something in the bag.
Yeah, sure.
And then boom, your cab 5 gets run, but nobody knows that you were hustling to do a switchback 7 on that feature. That's never been.
Dano knows. He's like, you didn't get that 7, so you can't take that 5 with you, buddy. That's
exactly.
That's basically what he was kind of calling.
Which I totally understand. But it's just
he's
different.
A purist. He's a part of the very first or second Whistler purists.
Yeah.
And those guys were hard on each other.
For sure.
And they pushed the industry because of that purism that they had, really, and he's shot with Devin so much, right? Like, and Devin is like OG purist as far as I'm concerned. Like, back in the day, I remember hearing people talk about he was like, he just like curated his footage that went out into the world.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't have that luxury, because they don't have that much stuff. It's just like milk every single thing that you get.
I feel like Devin, when I first started watching his video parts, I feel like he had so much to choose from. And I feel like he was like always a trick machine.
Yeah.
Can I take a piss real quick?
Fuck, of course you can.
I snapped on some skiers from Utah 2 years ago, or where are they from? Somewhere in the States.
People that just rolled up on your spot, and you were just like,
they were like following us around all day. They were I think they are pro skiers. Yeah, I think one of them rode for Rockstar or something, and they were like, we're up in the Rutherford, and first we were riding some lines, and they like rolled up on the bottom of these like big lines and just like watched us ride them, which brings me back to the transceiver signal thing. It's like, totally. I don't know your guys' ability. Like, that was whatever. I didn't say anything to them. And then like later in the day, we were building a jump on this face, and like right beside this face, there are these like nice lines that were like right beside this jump.
Yeah.
Clearly we're going to hit the jump and then ride these lines after, because they're like 40 feet away.
Yeah.
They just like start using the double track that we had like spent like an hour punching up to go ride these lines.
That's bad form.
And then super bad. And then when we hit the jump for the first time and noticed that not only were they riding our lines, but they had like fucking trenched out the double track that we made all nice.
Oh no.
I was just like, that's it. I just like rolled up and had like a huge blowout at them. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm not saying it should be like all like gnarly localized like surfing is, but I just feel like sometimes it's a little soft and everyone's just
all right. Well, I fucked up and I didn't start record until the middle of that little bit. So, but I do want to talk about Hawaii and your experience there, and that whole thing I just said about Whistler being our Hawaii. And I think that surfers would probably agree and say, yeah, we would watch a movie that's all shot in Hawaii. That would kind of make it more attractive than, because I'm sure surfers are probably tired of that world travel thing too, right? There's certain waves that people are going to hit. They're going to get them when they're good. But I think there is some substance to local knowledge. Mm-hmm. And if you fly up here from Utah and you rent sleds and you go out in the Whistler backcountry with one guide and you wind up at one spot, there's a different vibe than if you're going back there and exploring like what you guys are doing and opening up. I'm assuming you guys are opening up new terrain and exploring places and trying to anyways.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time trying to find new stuff.
Yeah.
And like to someone I will really give credit to is guys like Mikey Rentz and Aaron Leyland and Solers, because Solers, when he's not with us, rides with them a lot because of the Burton thing, and
Yeah.
Like, those guys are always putting in the work to find new zones. So I can only imagine how frustrated Rents must get when people just start, like, geotagging a zone that he found or following his tracks out to his zone. And we try and do that. We try and find new zones too. Like,
right.
So we want to hit new shit. We want to hit different shit. But
okay,
just to touch on that, like, Hawaii thing, it's like, maybe it's because that hasn't really been done so much. Like, where surfing is different because there isn't as much of a video part scene. There is, but all of the video part guys had, like, world tour standings, had, like, CT, you know, they did good on the tour.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, snowboarding, there are guys like me that just skip the whole contest thing and started filming video parts. So there's a bit more of, like, a media pro snowboarder type thing than there is a strictly media pro surfer type thing, unless you had, like, a history doing something else before. Like Dane Reynolds, like, you know, he was a competitive surfer before he was just, like, Dane, like, the coolest surfer, one of the coolest surfer that exists, in my opinion.
Right.
So there hasn't really been many, like, strictly Hawaii films, but there's been a lot of films that have been, like, mainly filmed in Whistler.
Right.
So maybe that's
true.
it. Maybe
that
people are just sick of seeing the same spots, because
it could be.
whether you're core like Dano Pendergrass, or whether you're pay half attention to snowboard films, like, eventually you're going to recognize the spots.
That's true.
So I can understand why people are like, let's see some new tricks.
That's probably what it is for Dano, is that he recognizes all the spots.
And he's been, like, in Dano's defense, he's been filming the OGs doing back sevens and cab fives and all these spots. He was there when the shit was
getting named. You know what I mean?
To see, like, Chris Rasman and Jody Wachniak doing, like, a front three and a fucking cab 5 form step down, like, that's not that.
Sure,
you know.
Sure.
But we tried, like, we really tried to hit different spots. We put a focus on hitting new shit as much as we can. We will waste sunny days, and in quotations, waste, to make sure we just go that little bit farther, to make sure we try and hit something a little bit different. But sometimes you can't. When it's January 20th and no one has a video part worthy shot yet, because the season has handed you like a really interesting bag of variables. Yeah, you're gonna get desperate because you have to produce content every year. You can't just be like, we're doing a 3-year project. Right. So eventually you're going to get to a point where you're like, oh, fuck. We're driving by, like, Hot Gap, or we're driving by Form Step Down and it looks good. Like, let's just fucking hit it now.
Let's hit it today, yeah.
Let's hit it today. So we do that sometimes.
Yeah, I would see that. That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing I'm thinking while you're saying this is that I would rather see you guys film on something that you've either discovered or something that you've hit a bunch of times that you're comfortable with and it's filled in and perfect and it's great. Yeah. Because when you travel, you're not going to get to go beyond what's already there. When you travel, you're going to go to the biggest thing. Okay, what's built right now, or what can we build pretty quick? You're going to have to go with a guide to get to where the thing is, as opposed to in Whistler, you guys get to go out on your own and find some cool shit.
Totally. We get to nerd out on Google Earth, and then we get to the next day when the snow's shitty, we get to go and explore, and, like, it's cool having this train in your backyard. And
that's fun.
And, like, I have, like, in my phone, I have, like, on a notes page, like, a checklist of features that haven't been hit yet that I have looked at and I know will work. Like, there's, like, a big gap. There's 2 big gaps that I have in my head right now that I'm just waiting for all it takes is the right, like, combination of, like, a thick snowstorm mixed with the right wind direction. And something that was way too ridiculous before will all of a sudden become reasonable. Like do you know the Jump Man Boy Gap? Do you remember that thing? We found a name.
Yes.
So we hit that in the first Man Boys year was the first year we hit it. That's why we named it Man Boy Gap. And then I also had a fold out cover of Snowboard Mag on it. And we've hit that thing 2 or 3 times now. Like, that thing is fully wind dependent. Some snow years you'll go there, even if it's a good snow year, you'll go there and there's just not a jump there. And then some years it just is sick and works.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I have, like, a checklist on my phone of, like, things that I want to go back to. And, like, every year I, like, slide back. I'm like, oh, maybe next storm.
You're just watching.
That's just watching. But it's a lot harder than people think to find new shit. To find shit that works.
Obviously.
Like, it's...
What was that big... that absolutely massive... It was a front 3?
Oh, the El Chapo.
What the hell was that? So, oh, my God. Just watching your landing on that is like...
High speed, fucking wheelie.
That seems impossible. That is huge. and yeah, like could give me nightmares. I fucking love that, and you hit it so good, dude.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that was one and done. First hit. I got to watch Ejac try it first and kind of go like 5 feet too deep.
Yep.
And then I saw where he started from, and I was like, I'm going to start like 6 feet lower than him, and yeah, I just got lucky and got in the right spot. But so that thing I hit it with the Jacksons, both John and Eric, and we named that thing El Chapo for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So that zone is in a zone that we nicknamed the refrigerator, which I will also credit to Mikey Rentz. I'm pretty sure Rentz and Leyland found that zone, and it's pretty far back there. It's like a 60-kilometer sled ride, and it's a really good zone to go to in the spring because it's this roly-poly wall with like jump spots and cliffs everywhere.
Cool.
And pretty much everything is north-facing.
Nice.
So you can go there when the sun's really warm and everything else is slushy and sun-baked, and all of these north-facing aspects will be kind of dark, but we'll have POW landings.
Epic.
And so in the Man Boys movie, we were spending some time with the whole crew building jumps there. Craig McMorris broke his leg on a jump in that zone, and then me and Rusty had a jump like kind of in another area there. And a couple days before Craig broke his leg, I saw a cliff there, and I was like, oh, I wanted to go from the top, like El Chapo, and like looking at it, and Rusty came on the radio and was like, dude, that thing's like 60 feet, just so you know, like it's a little crazy. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to ride in natural and just like hit it from down here and just do like a fresh front three. And so I did it, landed it for the Man Boys movie. And then the next year, what would have been 2017. Yeah, the next year after the Man Boys movie, I took the Jacksons there, and I was like, oh, I have a thing like I want to check out, and like if it doesn't work, that's okay. Like there's a bunch of spots to build jumps in that area. And they're like, yeah, dude, sweet. Like they're both just so down. So I took them all the way out there, and everything just looked right. I'm like, oh, there's more snow right now than there was during the Man Boys year. Like it's not 60 feet. It's like 52 feet or whatever. Like it was just a little bit smaller where it looked doable to go from top shelf. So we like checked it out from like every different angle, and I convinced them to help build it with me, and it was just a step down. So basically the build was like making sure the in-run was manicured, like super slow motion, slow moving in-run, just flat takeoff, and it was like this little bump where you wanted to land on.
Yeah.
And the snow was not that good. Like very not powder, just like kind of hot POW, but it was fucking steep, as you can tell probably from the footage, like really steep landing. So it's like, okay, if you land in the sweet spot, you'll be good. And yeah, we Roshammed. Eric lost. He went first. I went second.
Wow.
He tried a cab 5 and he like almost got it first tee, but just went a couple feet too deep. And then I went second, landed the front three, one and done. And then him and John teed off like I think twice more each until they got their trick. Like Eric got a cab 5 and John got a back 3, but that was like the biggest step down I've ever hit for sure.
Yeah, it's massive.
But it just worked. Like,
yeah.
I know it seems crazy. I'm not trying to be like fucking Evel Knievel stunt guy, but like sometimes you see something and you're like, oh, this is crazy and big, but like you're strapped in when you snowboard.
Right.
And like even if it's like not the greatest snow, like it's still snow. It's kind of soft. So if there's transition, and if you understand like snowboard physics, like you can just make it work. We're not psychopaths. We're just like we're like weird physicists.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Right. I remember. Was it That's It? That's All that Travis was drawing the transitions and showing. Like they were out there with an angle reader going, okay, this landing is like, and I remember being like,
Art of Flight.
Art of Flight could have been the first one, yeah. And
that's always the first.
Oh,
one.
sorry,
Art of Flight was the second one. Yeah.
I think that's what I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I can remember, like in the early days of park building, they didn't put any thought into any of that.
No,
sometimes
they just
you would
pushed
have
a wedge with a cat there.
You would have a tranny finder that everyone was going to flat on, or you'd have something that had absolutely no landing. That every time you landed, it was
people
an
were
impact.
overshooting.
It was just even if you hit the landing's only like.
There's definitely I feel like in park building a lot more math and science that goes into making all these jumps, because when I still rode big park jumps are going through their step down phase. So like when we're talking about Grouse, so like the showdown over the city events at Grouse, like it was super in to build these tower cheese wedges on a fucking like tabletop, and then you would like they'd be like kickers, so you're still going up.
Yeah.
But you're like stepping down into the park landing.
Way down.
So that was
yeah.
super in. So it was like always like really hard on the knees. You were like going super big and deep on these like, you know, mediocrely steep landings.
Yeah.
Now I feel like there's a lot more science that goes into it, and I think that is part of the reason why tricks have progressed to where they are in the park is they're like step up and over style, but tables.
Yep.
So like the takeoff is never more than 5 or 6 feet higher than the knuckle.
Totally.
And so if you like look at your axis, like you can't see right now because we're doing the podcast, but if
Yeah.
you look at your axis, it's like you're not falling from as high as you were before. You're still having the same like amount of seconds of airtime to complete your tricking, but you're not like coming down super hard.
Yeah.
And so that's for park. I think that's really changed snowboarding.
How many days a year do you get in the resort here? Like, do you buy? Do your sponsors buy you a pass? Are you sponsored by Vail Resorts? Do we want to get into the Vail Resorts bit of Whistler?
Well, I don't get as every year. I get less and less.
Yeah.
Just because I get busier and busier.
Okay.
So I don't get to ride the resort as much as I'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
But I fucking love the resort. I love where I live. Whistler Blackcomb is amazing.
Yeah.
For the last 6 years, Whistler Blackcomb has supported me and just given me a pass.
Amazing.
So I start the season riding as much park as I can, and then as soon as it's good enough to sled, we start going. And then on down days where maybe it got too windy and the powder sucks, or maybe it's cloudy, I ride the resort on down days.
Cool. So
Whistler's always been great and super supportive.
And the transition to Vail was fine?
No, it wasn't fine. I don't want to go too down that rabbit hole, but Whistler is still Whistler, and the people that stayed and still work for Whistler, despite the Vail takeover, are still who they are. They're still amazing people. They still eat, sleep, and breathe snow sports, and they're here for the right reasons. But Vail is a massive corporation, and they're not in the business of making people excited to go up the mountain. They're in the business of making money. So they're not here to me like, look at all these athletes we have riding a resort. Check out this epic powder day. They're more like, hey, wealthy families from all over the world, book your trips here months in advance. Come here, spend money.
Yeah.
And so I get it. I'm not hating on, like, they're just a corporation trying to make money and do well with shareholders they got to please. It is what it is, but it's definitely not, it's not doing anything positive for the community here or for the core culture or for what makes Whistler, and like one of the things that I moved here for and loved about this town. Like, those aspects of it are a little bit lost. I still got a pass this year from Vail.
Nice.
But it wasn't Vail that gave me a pass. It was people that work for Vail now, that are good people, that work their ass off to get me a pass.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not, I didn't get a pass from Vail. I got a pass from Whistler.
Yeah, I remember watching that happen in the snowboard industry. You know, like as more companies came in that didn't have a clue about the culture of people. That's what happened to a lot of the pros in the early 90s through to the 2000s, was that a team manager that would come on didn't really, you know, they would just bring their friends on. They'd say, oh, we know these new young riders, and then the heritage riders guys would just get bumped, like just not get re-signed, or, which is really, really tough if you've put your heart and soul into a brand.
Totally. To
go to the next brand, and it's usually either a step down, or even if it's a lateral movement, it's always weird, you know what I mean? Whereas like a guy like Jamie or Matt Cummins, who's been on the same team for 25 years, that's some sick-ass shit right there. That's why LibTech Canoe have such a high number of people that would, you know, that are in the industry that would say, oh yeah, that fucking company, they've never done, you know, like anytime you hear those guys, even Romain talking about Burton, even Terrier, he's been on Burton forever, but it's not easy for him to see his friends have to leave the team,
for sure,
right? Like, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it's
so yeah, I'm hyped on Lib still having Mike and Pete at the helm and doing the right thing by their team riders. They seem to be doing that.
They are, and they're definitely doing their best to stay true to that too, despite numbers and sales being down and being up and then being down. Like, they are definitely, I think, doing the best job in comparison to other brands out there for keeping real to that and just keeping it more like a family and less of like a cutthroat company. I mean, they've still had to make some hard decisions over the years. Like, there's still riders they've had to let go of that I know they did not want to let go of.
Right.
But
do you see Terrier when you're in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Do you guys talk snowboarding at all, or are you just like
Not
yoga and surfing or family?
Just-
what's the deal with Terrier in Hawaii?
Well, two key words there are the word talk and the word Terrier in the same sentence, because he's definitely pretty dry and pretty.
It's a quiet dude.
He's quiet and he's extravagant, or not extravagant. What's the word? Eccentric in his own way. Like he's. So I pretty much I always just like run into him there and run into each other in the surf. We don't talk about snowboarding. We talk about surfing.
Cool.
We talk about where'd you surf yesterday? We just kind of talk story, just shoot the shit. When I'm in Hawaii, I don't even really think about snowboarding.
You're taking a vacation.
It's my like mental reset. It's like my mental yoga to like when I come back here and it's December, I'm like ready to go and I'm motivated again, because otherwise it can be a bit draining.
Did your girl go with you this time?
She did.
That's sick.
For the first time since I've been dating. I've gone there twice since dating her where she didn't come.
Yeah.
This is the first time where she was like, she has a job where she can work from home now, so she came for the whole month. And
amazing.
She got to see all my spots and get to go on our friend's boat around the island a bunch. And she was funny. I was like worried about her hating me just going and surfing like all day.
Sure.
But she's like, I'm kind of down. Like I sit on the beach and get to tan, read for 2 hours, then you come back and then we go for lunch somewhere, then you go and do it again. I tan more, you come back. She's like, when you're snowboarding, you just are gone all day or you're traveling. So I'm like,
I totally get it.
Okay, word. Yeah, you like surf trips more.
That's sick. Sick. Yeah, I really took it personally when I first talked with Terry, and it was so awkward. I thought, he's so fucking cool, and I'm such a fanboy. I'm fanning out.
I don't think you need to worry about that.
I know I don't have to worry about it now because I've talked with him a bunch more. And also, I didn't realize until after the last time I talked to him, I was like, okay, we're going to do this interview. Here's the general idea of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I always manage to put the Olympics in there somewhere. And it's like, that's like the dumbest thing in the world. It's like there's one guy in the world who said, Olympics, I don't care for those.
Yeah.
And everybody talks to him about the fucking Olympics. It's like the one thing he doesn't want to talk about. And I've just finally figured that out. So I'm going to start this last interview with him saying, I'm sorry I always fucking talk about that shit. It must be annoying as hell.
The next interview you start with him, you're going to start it saying, we're not going to talk about the Olympics.
Yeah, because there's no reason to.
Yeah.
If I want to talk about the Olympics, I'll call Mark McMorris or someone who likes them.
Influential person who, people from your generation and from my generation and generation down were very affected by. Like, Terry is a big deal, always has been. So when someone like him makes such a bold statement about something, like, people don't forget.
Yeah,
so
no, it's important.
It.
Yeah, it's important, but it's like you don't want to ask the guy who hates the Olympics about the Olympics. It's just a bad combination of
totally.
Because he's told me that he hates it.
Yeah,
he hates it that people ask, and I'm like, okay, so we'll put that at the end then.
It's funny. My relationship with Terrier is like, I don't know him super well, but I feel like me and him just connect because of the Kauai surf thing, because he's got a house there and because my grandparents have a house there. So like whenever I run into him, even if it's in the winter, he's always just like, hey man, you been surfing? You been to Kauai? No man, not since November. Like, so we kind of have this like funny, like removed from snowboarding.
That's rad.
I'm pretty sure the last time Terrier said something to me about snowboarding was like in like 2012 or 2013. What I did this like intersection contest with a bunch of friends for the World Ski and Snowboard Festival here. And we hit a step up jump in Brandywine, and that's when I first learned like a double rodeo.
Yeah.
And I remember him coming up to me after it and just being like, "Well, man, that movie was sick. That double rodeo, that shit was sick, man. That was some like Travis Rice shit. Nice work." And just like super dry and like, "Yeah, man, good job." And he just like walked away, and I was like, "Holy fuck, that was so cool." I'm pretty sure that was the last time I talked about snowboarding with Terrier.
He's such a nice guy. Like that. He really, really is. He is.
Yeah. It's too bad that like, because I don't know how I'm gonna word this. You get as you start to get put more in like the limelight of your sport or whatever profession it is you excel in, like you do get more and more people giving you those types of compliments. It's too bad that the ones that matter so much have to be from people like him, because I wish there was some way to just like naturally filter out the genuine ones from the ones that are just people ladder climbing, because I have random people that I don't know giving me like awesome compliments all the time, and I try and take them all super like genuinely, but sometimes it's like, oh, you know, that person just wants to be your friend, and then some of them are like super real. You're like, that person is genuinely being like, what you do really inspires me, and that was amazing. I don't know where I'm going with that. I just wish there was some way to like, it doesn't have to be a person like Terrier to affect me.
Sure,
I wish I could just like filter out easier, like that was real, that wasn't. That was, you know.
It's tough, isn't it? It is. I think there are very few pro riders that had the impact that Terrier had, because he's not a big talker. That's the thing. He was the opposite of a big talker. He let his riding do the talking. So if he says something to you,
yeah, it's like, whoa,
it really means something. Yeah, that's definitely. There was a point where I was looking at my podcast, you know, the likes and all the things that you do to try and figure out whether it's working or it's relevant or
momentum.
what.
Do people even care? Like,
yeah,
are people listening?
Is there people listening? So I was trying to explain it to myself, I guess, and I don't know. I feel like the big comments, you know what I mean? Like what you're just talking about. Like if somebody that you really actually care about their opinion says, hey man, that was great, you just go like, I don't care that there's only 27 likes on that. That's like Jamie Lynn commented on it, which he never has. But yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough in this day and age, because you guys as pro riders, your content is like what your metrics are for what you're selling to the sponsors, right?
And like, numbers. It's all numbers, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying before about it probably being really confusing for brands right now where to put their money and where to like.
Right.
Everyone needs like constant content and more stuff on social media because everything's numbers. But at the end of a day, it's like if something gets like 10,000 likes, like that's literally someone just scrolling through and double tapping their thumb on a photo. They're like, oh, that was cool. On a post, they're like, oh, that was cool. But how much did that post really connect with them? Maybe if I post something that I think is really rad that I did and it gets 10,000 likes, but if there's 50 people of those 10,000 that I really connected with, and one of them comes up to me and is like, dude, that blah, blah, blah you did, like that was so sick. I just want to say, like, I'm a huge fan of your riding. Like, you really inspire me. Like, blah, blah, you heard this interview of you, whatever. And it's like a real connection. I can tell that I like made a difference for that person. Like, to me, 10 of those or 20 of those or whatever is way more valuable than 10,000 double taps from your fucking thumb.
Right, because the 10,000
there's no way to gauge that.
Right, the 10,000 can be gamed, right? Like, like there are people that can just buy likes, and people,
but even beyond that, even beyond buying likes, it's like what I'm getting at is like it's very easy to just double tap a thing, especially if you're also in the game of being an influencer, of being on Instagram. You see pro snowboarders right now and pro athletes, like everyone's stressing, so everyone's trying to engage. It's like like comment. Everyone's just trying to engage more and everything. Yeah. When I don't know, like
that's such a job.
Just be such a job. And
that is a big job. There was a guy.
It's like authentic interaction.
Yeah.
Like if you really influence someone, like let's say I make a post and like 10 of my followers, or only 10 of my 12,000 followers are genuinely influenced from me, and out of those 10, how many of them would be bold enough to come up to me and tell me that they're influenced from me?
Sure. Yeah.
So out of those 10,
or I've only 10 of those are like your close friends, that means.
But if let's just say for sake of argument that they're random people. Let's say I've influenced 10 random people.
Sure.
Because what's my job? My job is to sell product. Like that is why I'm a paid snowboarder. Like I'm selling product. I'm selling a lifestyle. So let's say I influence 10 random people. Only one of them has the guts to like say something to me, whether that's like reach out and send a private message to me on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, or see me in public and say something. Now I've only tracked in my head one of those intimate connections, but there might be 9 more.
Sure.
So it's like, how do you explain to a brand when they're looking for numbers? No. I know I only got 10,000 but 10,000 likes on this, but Joe Blow down the street got 50,000 likes on this. But trust me, like there's some real engaged people here that will actually buy this product because I'm using it. How do you express that to a brand?
You can't.
No, you can't. You just
that's
there's
impossible.
no way to do it. And so that is where snowboarding is kind of fucked right now.
Yeah, that's...
And I understand it's hard for brands. I don't want to rag on brands for, like, I know they're in a tricky position too, but it's sure as hell not making it easy for the athletes.
Yeah, because you can't just buck the system and go, oh, we're going to go with this guy who's not plugged in. This guy doesn't have any social media awareness or presence or anything.
Exactly. Even if he's like a really talented snowboarder and a really wicked person, and then there's
Jamie Lynn has to have this shit, dude. Jamie Lynn has to like curate his Instagram or at least get somebody to do it for him. Like he has to, or else
people are gonna forget about him.
Or he just won't get the free stuff, which supports the lifestyle that he wants to live. Yeah, man, that's the hardest thing about this, and it comes back to what I said at the beginning about that wanting to be the best. So if you measure the best as the guy who's got 50,000 likes versus wanting to be the most authentic, like, oh, eventually they're going to be able to weight likes and be like, oh, these ones are just like throwaway likes, and these ones are, ooh, he got liked by whatever, Donald Trump or something, carries so much more weight than some other random person or whatever.
Imagine there's like, as like technology progresses and there's like some way to measure those, the algorithms can get really crazy, or maybe they incorporate like some type of AI that it's like, okay, you got 50,000 likes, like what percentage of those likes like go to the LibTech website,
right?
And what percentage of those likes are like doing, like
right.
If the algorithm could get really crazy, like how many people do you like really influence? How many people are just like liking your shit because they're just double tapping? I don't know.
And they want you to like theirs. There's
exactly.
so many things.
They're commenting on it because they want you to follow them. That I get it. Like people like constantly. It's like, okay, this person's clearly commenting on every single thing I post because they're like, "Hello, I'm here. Follow me."
Follow me. Yeah,
and then I'm talking about other pro snowboarders.
Oh wow. Well, yeah, because that would make sense. Like even me interviewing you, I'm thinking, like I overheard Jody talk about like the number of downloads you guys get per episode, which I kind of knew. Like I'm looking at my own numbers going, I would be shocked if Man Boys didn't get more downloads because they've got so many followers. Yeah. I got like 500 followers or something of like everything. But so of course I'm going to put that in my metric. Like shit, man. That's why when we talked about doing that movie premiere, I'm going, oh fuck, if I can piggyback on the Man Boys premiere, I'm already on something that's 100% successful, regardless of what my input is into the thing. Yeah, it's too easy for me to like. I was shocked. I'm like, oh, you aren't doing it yet? Let me just like lay some footwork and you guys bring the movie down. Let's do that.
So huge. Like you don't understand how much like.
Well, it was huge for me too because as soon as
very mutually beneficial. You helped us, and I was happy to help you.
Thank you, and it did help me a lot. So I think. There's room for these genuine things. And like when people ask me about snowboard podcasting, I don't understand why we wouldn't just be everybody on everybody's podcast if it's relevant, if it makes sense. I mean, I can't be on your guys' podcast because you don't have old guys that talk about snowboarding on your podcast. You don't need them.
Maybe it might be cool to have you come and tell some stories one day.
Yeah, maybe down the line once you get to that point where you've exhausted every Whistler pro and everybody that flies in. But I don't see it being a rivalous thing. Like I like all the.
You mean our two podcasts?
Any snowboard podcast?
Fuck no.
It's
podcast
just,
period.
Yeah, podcast period. It's like there's more of them enough. There are. Yeah, there's not even close to enough.
You could pump them out twice a week, and you're gonna have people messaging and being like, "Dude, I listen to your shit every day at work. Like, make more,
And it's they're fun to make. That's the thing. And I don't know. I listen to probably 20 hours a week of podcasts, just random podcasts. So
yeah.
Once it gets to the point where it's all snowboard podcasts, I don't think that's ever going to happen, but maybe.
Definitely, probably not.
Yeah, no.
But maybe.
We still have this weird niche little thing. The world hasn't figured out what is going on yet with Instagram and social media. Anyways,
know what is happening.
You guys are crushing it. Man Boys are crushing it, and it's always fun to see stuff that you guys are doing. What's your goals for this year? What's your squad goals?
We really just genuinely enjoy filming and hanging together, and we enjoy doing it here. So the end goal of all of ours is to try and do that as much as possible.
Perfect.
We want to organize our season in a way, however we end up putting out content, that we can be here when it's good and that we can film together when it's good. As far as like content deliverables and what we're doing as a project this year, we're kind of still in conversation about it. There's talk about expanding this year and trying to hire another filmer and bringing on another guests, like, you know, getting some other guys like maybe E-Jack or Austin Sweeten in there and just,
Rad.
You know, making some sort of project. What we're talking about right now is like how we're going to deliver the content, because we don't really want to do a web series again. I feel like we've kind of exhausted the web series thing, like the 5-part web series. It's not to say that we won't do that ever again, but I feel like right now we're all kind of like, let's do something different. This year we kind of were all busy like running around doing other stuff, so we didn't have enough footage together to make a web series, so we just did a short film. And moving into 2019, we just want to do something different. We don't really know what that is yet, but everyone's motivated. Everyone's back home now. Like, I just got home from Hawaii, and Solars and Jody are here. Rusty's going to be back from the island in a couple of days, so we're overdue for like a team meeting, basically. So,
cool.
So stay tuned. But
yeah, I'm excited.
But
That's amazing.
We're all filming together again, and sponsors seem keen to support again. So we're not going anywhere. And
let's talk about the Travis thing, because that was fascinating to me. When I first heard it, I was like, "Ooh, that's a really cool." And, like, in my opinion, a really good choice, like a cool fit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, again, I don't have all the information about it, but basically Travis selected you to join his pro model collective. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is anyone else in that collective?
In Travis's line?
Yeah.
No.
Rad.
He has like 5 different pro model boards with Lib now.
Yeah.
5. T-Rice Pro, Kids T-Rice Pro, Gold Member, Climax, Orca, T-Rice Pro Split. He has like six boards in the Lib Tech, like 6 boards with his names on it, all different.
Yeah.
And dude, basically to summarize it all started. I think he's just been really busy since they started doing Brain Farm movies.
Of course.
So when 4th Phase was like wrapped up, and I don't think it premiered yet, but like when they were wrapped up filming, and our Man Boys movie 2 years ago was like kind of premiering around the world. He was at the premiere in Colorado or something, and he called me when it ended. And I was at a Friendsgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving, just hanging with some friends, and my phone rings, and it's Travis Rice. I'm like, what is he? What does he want? Holy fuck. And we'd known each other from Quick and from Lib and stuff, and I'd like kind of loosely communicated with him over the years, but like super loosely. Like, we definitely didn't know each other well. He just called me and like congratulated me on everything that I've been doing. Was like, he thanked me for riding his pro model board for all these years. He's like, dude, I know this call's long overdue, but I've just been busy, like Brain Farm shit's been crazy, and just wanted to say, like, your part in Man Boys movie was sick. Thanks for riding my board all these years. Like, I'm convinced you're responsible for a portion of the sales, like, for sure. And just like, thanks. And I'm just like, holy fuck. Like, he's, for me, huge influence for me. Always connected with his style. Like, I'm a big fan of Travis, always have been. So this was like crazy phone call for me to get. So I'm just like soaking it up. Like, yeah, man, thanks. Like, that's awesome. But also kind of like, where is this going? And then he was just like, we got to get you. He's like, I'm going to talk to Lib. We got to get you a pro model. He's like, I'm a little drunk right now, but like, don't think that this is just a drunk call. Like, I'm not the type of guy to do that. Like, I'm going to follow up with you on Monday. Like, we're going to talk to Lib Tech and we're going to get you a pro model. And he's like, and man, I want to fucking ride with you. Let's do a film together. Let's do something together. And that was that. We hung up the phone, and I was like, okay, that was crazy. Sure enough, like 9 a.m., that was on like a Saturday. Sure enough, 9 a.m. Monday, calls me back. We wrap out a bit about Lib Tech and season plans and what I'm doing with Man Boys, and he says he wants to do some sort of project with me. We don't know what it is yet. And he also says he's going to talk to Lib and kind of hint to them at getting me a pro model. Pete Sari was down. Mike Olson was down. Jesse Burton was down. And kind of unfolded from there. And they were like, you've been riding Travis's board for all these years. Like, let's instead of just going like, boom, like new technology, new board, whatever, let's like sneak it into Travis's line and offer it in your graphic in some different sizes.
Sick.
So it's so for this year, it's like a T-Raz, like T-Rice Pro Rasman edition, offered in different size and my graphic. And
That's so creative and cool.
Then,
that's such a lib thing.
Totally.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
And so it's a mid-season release.
It's a late season release, so they actually haven't even announced. I think they've let some, like, I think shops know now, and shops are ordering it, but I don't think they have it yet.
Right.
They're announcing it. I don't even know if I can say this yet, but I don't know when you're going to release this podcast.
Wednesday.
Yeah, we're good. December 6th is when Truffle Pigs drops.
Killer.
And that is also when LibTech is going to announce my Pro model. And I think that's when they'll start promoting it. So it's more like just like a late season release.
Yep.
Sneaky amount of, I mean, I don't know how many they're making.
Right.
Burtner was just like, we'll see. He's like, they're selling good. They're going, like, shops are buying them, especially in Canada. So maybe they'll make more. But
yeah, that's epic.
And then, that
how
kind of
flattering is that? That's like fucking big deal, dude.
It was insane. And it was also like, it was fucking, it's like really, it's really touching for me to have that, like, for lack of a better term, because flattering and just like meant a lot to me, because I don't have any hate. I don't have any like serious hate for the snowboard industry. There are things that I can hate on. There are things that I can complain about. For sure, there are things that I think are whack. But me never having a blow up year and me never getting paid at a young age, that's just circumstantial. That's not anybody else's fault. That's just whatever. But to have it like finally happen like that, and have like one of my favorite riders like reach out and give me that type of recognition, like, it's pretty crazy, dude.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't take it for granted. I was like, this is fucked. This is so insane.
Yeah, and then I was talking with Myro kind of right after I found out that that might be how I found out. I'm not positive. And he was talking about your spy goggle.
Yeah.
So you got to choose a colorway.
Yeah, I actually chose. So that one came together because of Marasha. He's like, hey.
Yeah.
He's like, I've been talking with Spy, and I've been riding for Spy for years at this point. Like, I've actually been with Spy for quite a while. And he was like, I've been talking with them, and they were hinting at, like, maybe adding a new pro goggle to the line, like a pro colorway. And I mentioned your name, and they were down. Like, super last minute, we have to have something to them in, like, a few days. Do you have any ideas for pro model goggle? And right away, I was like, oh, yeah, I fucking know what I want. I like, got on, like, Pinterest, and I looked at all these like cool 80s like Tron style images that I like, that I'm super down with, like weird 80s art.
Yep.
Like retro, colorful, like weird purples and pinks and shit.
Cool.
And so I like sent them like 15 images that I just thought were really cool, and they were like, boom, love it, we're going to give you a pro model goggle.
Fuck.
And so it went from me sending them like a group of inspiration photos to them sending me what they mocked up, what their graphic designers made, and being like, here's option A, here's option B. We're on a deadline, like pick one by tomorrow. But I really liked what their graphic designer did right away. I was like, that's sick. I like the first one. Let's do that.
That's amazing. So those are out in stores. People can get those.
No. So my board will be in stores like now to soon, like really soon. Yeah. My goggle is 1920. So my goggle, I'll be receiving samples soon. It won't be in stores till next fall.
Got it. That's crazy that you got like a 5-day deadline to make it for like next year.
Totally. It's weird how that shit works.
Yeah.
Even I've already finished my new like Rasman Pro model.
Your second one.
Sorry, with LibTech, not with Spy.
Yeah, that's the second one for 2020.
Exactly.
Jesus. Yeah, I can remember.
So far ahead.
I can remember when Burton was 2 years ahead, and everybody else was just like scrambling to get like this year's shit out. And
totally.
They were always ahead of the game that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are.
Really
now.
Hard to like how are you supposed to know what like the industry thinks will be cool 2 years ahead of time, and B, know what like you think is cool? Like, I've never like drastically changed my style or like the way I dress on a snowboard. Like, I've always been kind of like pseudo baggy, like Devon / Travis Rice inspired.
Yep.
But sometimes I'm into different shit. Like, I had a few years where I was super into really bright colors, and then like, I don't know, like how are you supposed to know 2 years ahead of time what you think is cool, what you think the industry thinks is cool? And then you have to like it's probably hard being a designer for these companies. You have to be like, okay, we're gonna make this. I hope in 2 years people are down because we're committing right now. Like,
right. I remember when I was a buyer for the shop, and I never bought I wasn't the majority buyer, I would always get the throwaway. Yeah. I'd have to buy surf or wetsuits or some or the accessories and wax. Like they didn't put me in charge of like soft goods or hard goods, because for me, I know how to order and it's I'm a lazy person.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a rep showing me a line, I go, here's the order form. Tell me what sizes of what colors are going to be fucking hot in 2 years. You guys have been talking about it at meetings. What are you going to be putting in your ads?
Yeah,
because whatever you
totally.
put in your ads, make sure we have that in the store, please.
Yeah.
Like, because I remember the year I realized what it was. Like, I didn't know what the job was because I was a kid when I started working there. You're sitting at a table with another guy going, I think 18 people are going to come into the store next year, and 3 of them are going to be fat, and there's going to be 2 short guys, and the short guy's going to want white pants, and the fat guy wants burnt orange. Like, it's insane what you're doing.
Dude.
It's insane. And I could not sit through those. Like, that's why I got demoted to, like, I'm like, interested in, like, trinkets and wax and how it works and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I could go tech talk with people, but I could not sit and watch models put on jackets with someone saying, that zipper's going to be different in production, and trying to imagine what this is going to look like on the rack. I was just like falling asleep and hating it. But yeah, I can't imagine being a designer.
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for them.
Yeah, me too.
I've never been like super involved. Riding for Rip Curl now has been fucking awesome so far. And I went down to the headquarters in Australia and got to meet all the people behind the company. And that was like the first time in a while that I've been like, it just felt way better than I ever felt when I was on Quicksilver. I was like, these dudes are rad. And so I think now moving forward with Rip Curl, I'm going to have a lot more involvement from design, so that'll be like a new chapter for me because I haven't really done that much before. Right. So I'll probably have to sit through a lot of those boring meetings and just kind of see how it all works. But yeah, it's got a lot of respect for those dudes, man. It's a lot of work and just trying to like follow the trends, but then still like try and be unique and make make your brand's piece stand out. But then also like, and then like like our riders like this, but like our riders are core, and that's not the masses, and like there's so much shit.
Yeah, I can't even imagine trying to make something that you think is going to have mass appeal to sell. Because, like you said, your job is to sell boards. It's not to ride the product that you want exactly. You know what I mean? Well, because do you want what everybody's riding? Probably not. You probably don't want to be on Whistler and everybody's riding the exact same shit as you. But then from a money standpoint, you're like, well, I hope everyone's riding my board. Yeah, they could ride last year's. Totally. Write as many of those as you like, guys, because I want that.
Well, I mean, now that I'd always, I feel like I've been pretty, at least for the last like six years or so, I've always been pretty on it with making sure that I'm like at least proud of what I'm riding. Cool. Like even when I rode for like a small kind of startup out of our company, Anon Cooperative. Yeah. They had like 2 or 3 years going there, and then they went out of business. They were just new, trying it out, couldn't hold on, tough times out there. But I was like really stoked on what they were about. I was like, they made cool looking shit, and they like everything was like environmentally friendly. I've always like tried to make sure I'm like down with what I'm riding. Cool. As best as possible.
Is it true you buy your own gloves? Is that a true thing?
I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dekine's been sent. That's funny. Okay. Where'd you hear that?
From Nick. Nick was like, Chris Rasman buys gloves for me, bro, and he rides have you ridden Salmon Arms? Yeah. Oh yeah. And you bought them?
Yeah, totally.
Which is that is a new thing, like supporting your friends, like actually physically paying money for shit. That's new for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dekine, I've always kind of had like a hookup at Dekine. Okay. Where they've been great. I've never like rode for them, but I can hit them up at any point and get gloves and backpacks. Sure. And they even sent me some this year. Like they're great. Rad. But like, I'm a fan of Nick Harenga. Me too. He's starting this company. Big time. And we coached at camp together all the time, known him over the years, and all of a sudden I see these fucking Salmon Arms everywhere, and I was like, yo, I want a pair. And he's kind of like poking fun at me, like, you gotta buy him, dude, gotta buy him. I know that if I just asked him like, yo, can I get a pair, he would have given me a pair, but I was like, I'll 100%. Fucking buy a pair. Yeah. So I just like was like, yo, how much? I was like, bought a pair of gloves. That's amazing. And I would do that again, just because I think his gloves are really cool, and I would do that to support him. I want the Bo Bishop glove, even though I'm not into hockey. I want Bo's glove. Yeah, the creativity of his company is. I don't think there's anything out there. Yeah. That's like that. They're very on that same path that LibTech was in the beginning, where they were taking like just inside jokes and local shit and just running with it.
And running with it in such a rad way.
Keenan Filmer's glove, the Spy versus Fi, and it just says Keenan sucks on it.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
That's so funny.
It's amazing.
Or like the Finding Demo, like Derek Malinsky, and giving these like amazing riders who didn't blow up, who are like smaller Canadian names but are so sick, giving them pro model like things and putting them on. Dude, I was riding with Bo yesterday, my first day snowboarding of the season. Before we like even drop in for our first run, this kid comes up to Bo. I see him like looking at us, and it's like me, Solers, and Bo, and I thought he was looking at Solers at first. I was like, oh, this guy's gonna go fan out on Mark.
Sure.
He walks right past Mark, goes right up to Bo, and he's like, hey man, are you Bo Bishop? I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, I bought your gloves. Like, can I get a photo with you? Like, yeah, I'm gonna go run and get a pen. He made Bo sign his gloves. He bought his salmon gloves and then got a photo with Bo.
That's so awesome.
Like, that's fucking sick.
I've really, really, really loved that is alive and well. Mm-hmm. Like, have you seen the Sandwich movie that those guys did? Just watch it. You'll love it. It's crazy. It's just like tree jibbing and like
the Salmon Arms guys did.
Yeah, it's a shenanigans thing. It's just fucking worth watching, man. Because it'll remind you of those old movies. It used to be people would make movies with a high 8 and just fuck around. I mean, that's where whiskey came from, and all those, like even the Wildcats, they were just like filming each other. And it's the Seymour Kids Sandbox, all that is just like guys with cameras filming their own shit.
Yeah.
You guys are in my opinion, kind of the culmination of that, like the evolution of that. But now you've got such a legitimate snowboarding in there that like, and they had some good shit. Yeah. But they had to put a lot of lifestyle stuff in there
to fill it up.
They were just fucking around all the time.
It's also hard to, dude, not everyone has the resources to get a sled and a truck and go film in Whistler Backcountry. So like where the Man Boys had a, we like we're talking about, we pull on that like relatable heartstring a little bit, like the the friends thing and like riding in your backyard and just like having fun in your local mountains. But we all had a bit of a jump start because we all had momentum going. Like Solar's huge name. Solar's already so established at that point. Like Trans World Rookie of the Year, like fucking crazy well-rounded video part for the Trans World movie. Like Rusty, super like noteworthy pro, like film for the bunch of Sandbox movies, People movies, like Belzile, same thing. Jody and I kind of up and coming, but still like noteworthy names already at that point. It wasn't. We had a huge advantage, is what I'm saying. I'm aware of how like lucky we were to, like, it was a good time for us to start that.
It's dope.
We couldn't have just started that and been like, we're gonna go snowmobile in the mountains, film all year, like right away. Like I said, backtracking to the like working during the winter. First year of Man Boys, 2014, was the very first year that I decided to not work in the winter. I still work in the summer to this day. But
right.
First year of Man Boys, I was like, I am not working in the winter anymore.
Did you think of it as like, okay, snowboarding is my job now?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, as soon as I started getting paid, I kind of did. But at that point, I was like old enough to be mature about it and being like, okay, if I'm smart, I can like actually make this a real job and like maybe even save some money through my passion.
Cool.
So I think so. I think I was like, and I part of me, I've always had this like kind of quote I live by, where if you have a heavy plan, it's nothing against people that have plan Bs or like a backup plan. I think you need to. I think that's good too. Sure. But if you have a super solid plan B, are you really going to be putting 110% into your plan A?
Dude, that's why I stayed at Grouse and Cypress, is because the plan, I didn't even really have a plan A. I've only operated on plan B. I was like, I could always just not. Like, snowboarding is super hard work, is what it comes down to. Like, being a professional snowboarder, it's harder than most jobs. I don't think that there are many jobs out there that take that kind of passion, dedication, and also like you have to teach yourself. Like, there's so much to it that you're not just gonna, like when I started at the post office, they go, can you count to 10 in English and French? And I'm like, do you need me to do it, or do I just say yes? They're like, just say yes.
You're like, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. And they're like, basically, you're hired. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a little more than that. You had to write a test where you could do basic math as well. But then that's it. Now you've got the job. Whereas like snowboard, there isn't any pro that was given their even like Eteria, he had to figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe we're moving into a generation now where, because now there is soccer dads of snowboarding. Like now the sport is old enough that I think there are kids that are having their hand held a little bit more through it and being shown the ropes. And
were the McMorris brothers? Was that from something like that? How did both those guys get so crazy?
Well, they were
fucking good from where they were from,
right? They're an anomaly because I mean they were wakeboarders. Super funny. They were like really good wakeboarders.
Wow.
And but they both like Camp of Champs kids. Like went to the summer camps, gymnastics, all that stuff. Like just talented, athletic little kids.
So their parents did nurture their passion, though.
For sure. Yeah.
That's smart.
The McMorrises definitely. Their parents were into it. And
I was fascinated by that crash last year. I could not believe. Were you guys, any of your guys up there?
No, not for. You're talking about for Marks, right?
Yeah.
No, we weren't.
Oh my god.
But Torstein was there. Anto was there. Aaron Hogue, the photographer, was there. I heard about it.
Yeah, no shit. That would have just. Yeah, everybody heard about it like that day, kind of thing. It was a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
And so it's incredible to see that he's recovered. Obviously, it's one of those stories that is like, this is impossible.
He's a beast.
He's a beast,
and he's super fucking gnarly and competitive.
Yeah.
He doesn't he likes being at the top, and he's a fucking champion. Like he's not gonna let Mark will not let something like that bring him down. Like he's like I know that it bothered him so much that he got bronze.
Wow.
Both times.
Yeah, there's
because he's a competitive person, and he like thrives off of that like stress and that pressure.
Yeah, some people have that. Hey.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Me neither.
Like I have Kodak courage. I like cameras.
Me too. I do.
I like being in front of my friends.
Yeah.
I thrive off of showing off in front of people I
Same.
trust.
Yeah.
I don't thrive off of showing off in front of a huge audience.
Right.
That's not my thing.
Right. You don't
That's
need to
Mark's
win.
thing.
Right. Yeah, that was my thing. I set my goals really low. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, if I can get into Trans World, then I can show Sudbury, Ontario. I am the best in Sudbury, Ontario, right? Like if I'm in Trans World, none of them are in Trans World. And so I got an ad with some sponsor that I had, and that was it.
What sponsor?
For me, it was Ice Age Snowboard. So like Jimmy Scott, Tom Burt, and got to go on some trips. Got the shots.
Yeah.
Had a couple ads with them actually, and respectable shots. Yeah. If I say so myself. Dude. But for me, I was like, okay, now I'm ready to quit. Like
I'm done. Hanging up the boards.
I don't need to do anything else. Yeah. Sudbury is a wrap. I'm the number one Sudbury pro for life. It's so weird that it was like that was my mode, but that was my mode. And so
like your motive?
My motive was definitely to like prove to the people I'd lied to when I was 16 that I was a good snowboarder. Do you know what I mean?
I had that same thing.
Yeah, so you tell people like, "Oh, I'm going to Whistler to be the fucking next big pro." Mm-hmm. Then you go to Whistler. And actually, I went to Mount Hood and came back, and they're like, how was it? And if I was honest, I would have had to say, I was the worst person there. They put me in the worst group, and they thought that I was useless. But I came back, and I was like, I'm sponsored. It was
epic. Yeah.
It was epic. And I came back with a board, and they gave it to me, and I'm going to be the next big thing.
Dude, I can totally relate to that. Like now, I have like no problem being like real and talking about publicly in interviews or podcasts about like how little money I made and how like barely hooked up I was throughout my Alterna years. Right. When some people might look back and be like, oh, those like Rasman Alterna parts, like probably thought I was like a legit pro snowboarder then. But like I like lived this like fake life. Like I was working my ass off at like a fucking hotel in Whistler, full time in the summer, part time in the winter, and like filming these video parts. And just like basically pretending to be a pro snowboarder, but still like working my ass off.
Yeah.
But letting people believe
totally
that I was something bigger than I was. That's amazing. Wasn't like I was necessarily. Maybe when I was young, like definitely when I was like 18 to like probably 22, I probably lied to some people, probably some girls, and like and stuff like that. But I don't know. It was more just I was like living the lifestyle of a real pro, and really I'd have to bail out and go to work at like a normal person.
Right.
And then it's kind of like finally all started to come together, and now that
nice.
it's like coming together for me in the last like 5 or 6 years, and now that I am a real pro snowboarder, it's funny now I'm like so much less inclined to like tell new people that I meet that I'm a pro snowboarder. Like when I meet random people when I'm traveling and they ask me what I do, like say I was like, oh, I work for some snowboard brands. That's like usually my go-to.
Yeah,
because I almost feel weird like being like, oh, I'm a pro snowboarder. I don't know why.
No, I understand. I completely understand, because you are what you are. You don't need to sell it to anyone anymore. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, because it comes across as a brag if you're sitting beside someone on a plane and they're like, I sell soap, and you're like, I'm a pro snowboarder. You just whatever. I work for these companies. It's
so nice too when like someone doesn't form an opinion of you like right away before they even start talking to you. Yeah. And I know that sounds like weird and maybe kind of cocky in its own way, but like I feel like if you tell someone you're a professional athlete, you are right away like there's like some sort of mold they're making of you before they've even like spoken to you. Yeah, that's
the thing about snowboarding being in the Olympics, right? Like that really is. That vibe really changed when it became this Olympic sport, and like it was like a legit thing, you know, where moms are like, well, you should have gone into the Olympics.
Oh my God, my kid can make some money in this snowboarding thing.
Well, we always knew he would be something.
Start flipping, Jimmy. You're not flipping soon enough. Come on, you're 10 years old. Time to start doing some double corks.
Well, you mentioned coaching, so that's actually something that it was a really good gauge on where snowboarding was going, right? Like when we would go to camp when we were kids, you wouldn't duck out for any reason. You were there because you begged your parents to go there. Yeah. And then over the years, it turned into this thing where parents were like, you're going to go to this camp and you're going to get good at snowboarding because I don't want to work at the grocery store for the rest of my life or whatever it is. Yeah. You know, and those kids, I can remember seeing them at Mount Hood being coached and them just like going beside the jumps and the coach going, you got to hit the jumps. Stop turning. I showed you where to straight line from there. Yeah. Go straight from there. Stop. And then the kids being like, oh, when do we go down?
Yeah, why'd I knuckle, coach? That hurt.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to do this. And I think that really hurt. You know, did you work with Ken at all?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I coached for Camp of Champions for 4, maybe 5 summers.
Right. Ken's the best. We can agree Ken is the best, right?
Ken is the kookiest, best, big-hearted dude. He's such a goof, but he's such an awesome dude.
Yeah, he's always been that.
Yeah, he's great.
Forever.
And he's got as much of like, you know, people can poke fun at Ken and like laugh at some of his eccentricities. Like everyone. We all have eccentricities.
Sure.
He started camp for all the right reasons. Yep. And he had such a like big role in where Canadian snowboarding is today. Like I have a lot of respect for Ken. And some people have talked some shit on like what's happened with Camp of Champions recently and like, you know, the way everything happened, and it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's Ken's company, and I have a lot of respect for Ken. That's going off track. But yes, I worked for Camp of Champions for 4 or 5 years. Coached kids in the summer.
So you would see this. Did you see from the first year to the last year that you were there, like a decline in the engagement of the kids and what was actually going on at camp?
When I first started coaching, actually, it wasn't a long enough time period that I really noticed a big change. I just noticed that when I first started coaching, I was like, oh, wow, like the kids these days, like they ask about Torstein Horgmo and they ask about the McMorrises, and then some of them know who the Man Boys are, or like know who I am, or watch movies. So I noticed like right away when I started coaching, I was like, oh wow, like that's what was dope about camp is I actually enjoyed coaching kids. I mean, obviously sometimes you get shitty kids that are annoying and they don't want to be there, but like I enjoyed coaching the kids that wanted to be there and that were motivated to learn how to snowboard. Like I got a kick out of like watching them progress and seeing my feedback work for them. I had a lot of fun doing it, but it was also a really good way for pro snowboarders to connect with something they wouldn't else connect with. Like we got a glimpse into like the future. Like this is a generation, like these are kids. Yeah, there's teenagers there and stuff too, but even that is a completely different generation that we're out of touch with. And for a summer, we got to hang out with them and like talk to them and see how they thought, see what they were into, see what they, see how they dress, see everything, see what influenced them, and be a bit of an influence on them. And one thing that I noticed is that was like the first like sign where I was like, whoa, like video parts are maybe dying. Like, not a lot of these kids, like, I came from an era where you wait for movies every year and you go and buy the movies, and it was the fucking best watching the dudes that film the video parts. And
Totally.
in the, like, the Mac Dog movie or Absinthe movie or whatever it is, like After Lame, like whatever it is you're buying. And when I first started coaching camp and started hanging out with all these like the new generation of snowboarders, I was like, wow, all they're asking about is like Torstein Horgmo's recent park edit or where the McMorris is, and small percentage of them knew who we were.
Right.
And yeah, it was kind of crazy. That was my first realization where I was like, whoa, what's happening? Shit's changing.
There was a podcast about organized sports, and coaches saying like Little League numbers are down like 40%, which is a lot. That's a lot down. And it's because kids have video game brain now. And not just like they want to play video games, but
they're
like
too good. Video games are too good now.
Video games are so good that if a kid's playing a soccer video game and in the game they start to lose by a goal or two, they just hit reset. So when they're really losing in real life by 2 or 3 or 4, they just like completely give up and they just hate it. And then they tell their parents, I don't want to do that anymore. And then the parents go, oh, he doesn't really like that. So
I feel like I can draw some parallels with that, going back to the social media thing. It's like we're in this age of like constant gratification, and no one wants to suck at anything. And and everyone is just living this fake polished turd of their lifestyle, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
No one's putting out the shit that sucks. No one's like I used to fucking post photos of me working in the summer, and like I don't anymore.
Yeah,
because I'm like, oh shit, like all my my
know.
Instagram feed is like my snowboard outlet now. So like, maybe I shouldn't post that personal stuff. I used to think it was funny, like me covered in paint or whatever I was doing, covered in sawdust. And like now I'm like, oh,
and girlfriend pics, and definitely like it was very right away that people were like, you don't post food pics. That's just fucking. Yeah. I'm gonna unfollow you, asshole. Exactly. I don't want to see your dinner. I don't want to see the beer you're drinking.
That should have been the unspoken truth right from the start.
Stop it. Yeah. And then it's like now we're at a point where like if I'm like.
Or like post a dumb blurry photo of your friend in the bar because you had drinks with him, you haven't seen him in a few years, and like
go back to my Facebook photos from like my early things are just so random. A lot of them are pictures my kids took, and just like 3 of the same photo, just like a little different, of a nothing. Totally. And like I'm just realizing right now, there's way less of my family in my feed than ever, which is so sad for me. Because the most important thing is my kids and my wife.
But who is that feed for? That you just said the most important thing for you is your kids and your wife.
Yeah.
Who is that feed for?
Yeah, that's for me, right? Yeah.
The feed. So this is the thing, and that I thought that too. And like sometimes, like me and my girlfriend, she was like, "Oh, you never post photos of me anymore." And I kind of explained it to her. I'm like, who is that feed for? Like, I have all these like amazing photos on my phone, on my computer of you, and all like the traveling we've done and all the fun times we've had. Like that's for me to look at. Like now that there's this new thing that everyone's just trying to show everyone what they're doing, and how like I don't need all these random people like that's not for them.
It's not for them.
It's not for them.
That's true.
So it's not sad.
Okay.
So you still have those photos, right?
I do.
But
at the same time, when I'm looking at my feed, it's just not what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's just you, and someone else is looking at your feed, and someone else that follows you because of the FNRad podcast.
Sure.
Like,
sure.
What's Eric up to? What's he posting? You don't need some random people to
looking at my hot wife going like, ooh, nice fucking bikini on her. Like I definitely don't want to put that out there. If you have
like your close 10 or 15 friends, and if you go on vacation with your family and and there's a family photo that you really want some of your friends to see, start a fucking group text and send it to them.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's how Instagram started.
Yeah.
I had like 30 followers when I first signed up, and it was awesome because I was like, all 30 of these people, I want them to see this.
Yes.
Now it's not that.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad we talked that through, because I really did for a moment there feel like
life talks.
I'm fucking, I'm blowing it with my, because, whatever. I got to start another one that's like just me and my kids,
and make it private.
Yeah.
And only only let people follow it that you like want to be.
I just heard my son say to my daughter, he's 15, she's 19. Mm-hmm. He said, she was like, "Oh, do you snap with your friends all the time?" And he's like, "Oh, I have like a few streaks, but I don't even know how there are streaks because I never reply to them, so I don't know how.
This is your son saying this?
This is my son saying it. And then he goes, but that's the thing with you, Emma, you still have Facebook because you're old. And I was like, wow.
God.
Yeah, Facebook is just for old kids.
I've
you know
heard someone say that recently. Like, dude,
it's all
nobody
Snap.
met my friends in Hawaii. A bunch of them have like younger kids, and one of my friend's daughters, I said something about Facebook, and she said basically the same thing to me. She's like, nobody uses Facebook anymore. I'm like, well, how the hell do you guys communicate? Instagram DMs, duh.
Instagram DMs.
I'm like, okay.
It's insane to see my son's Instagram DMs, and there's like, they'll have 15 people in one and 14 in the other, and then everyone in that 14 is in the 15 when there's only one person that's not in it, and they talk about that person, and it's like, I'm like, you need to not be in any of those.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's nasty. That's horrifying.
Scary time to be a teenager.
You know, it's a scary time to be a dad too. I remember seeing my son's feed. They were doing some truth or dare stuff, and I was like, oh, what the hell is this going to be? And they dared one of the girls to like annoy her dad, and so she's just like starts slamming shit like ah.
Oh
and
my
he comes
God.
running in. And he goes, "What the fuck is going on in here?" And like so that gets like 150 likes, right? And I'm like, don't you ever do that to me,
YouTube,
please.
or are they sending a video to each other on Instagram?
That's an Instagram video. That one was. So it was like they're just like making fun of their parents to each other.
High school's changed.
It's insane, dude. I love it.
It's crazy.
All right,
Sometimes I forget like how
crazy tangent here, but yeah, go.
That's good. I love it. That's what's beautiful about the podcast world is, listeners, you can stop at any time.
Yeah,
if you're sick of hearing us talk, you can just clock out.
Yeah.
But yeah, high school's changed. I feel like it's just changing faster and faster and faster. It doesn't even feel like that long ago that I was in high school, but it was. And It's such a different world now. And like, I feel like me and you being in high school, our two high school experiences are probably more relatable than my high school experience compared to your 15-year-old son's high school experience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even though that's a similar time difference. Like,
yeah. Did you have a phone? You didn't have a phone in high school, did you?
I got a phone in like the 10th grade, and it was a shitty little Nokia thing.
Flip phone or like the
just
candy bar or whatever it was?
Yeah, just candy bar buttons.
And you had to like press 3 times to get the L or whatever.
One game, Snake.
Yeah.
You like move
Snake.
like the fucking the 2, the 3, and the 9, the 6 or whatever. Like those are the arrow keys. Yeah, it's a super shitty phone.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just different.
I don't think anyone even had a pager when I was like literally there was just no technology. If you wanted to talk to someone, you had to call them on the cord phone. Now I'm that old man.
Called your pigeon, tied a note to its leg, and just, hope you get there, little buddy.
Yeah, but it was still the same social pressures. It's still the same thing. I just can't imagine. That was the thing. My wife and I were really being hard on my 15-year-old because he'd sneaks his phone into his room at night.
Yeah.
Because we get him to go to bed at like 10:30 or 11 on a school night. That's like insane for me, but whatever. He's in bed at midnight, and he just can't break the text thing. Because if you're not in on that text at the end of the night, you're that loser that had your parents took your phone away and you have to go to bed. So there's like that social pressure to be connected all the time. And so like I feel bad for him, but at the same time I'm like, you'll get used to it. Just fucking give me your phone at 10.
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
gonna lock it up and turn it off.
That's interesting. I never thought of that because, like, obviously, like I don't have kids, and I'm thinking like I have these like views in my head of what I think is right to do. Like if I ever have kids one day, and I was going to say like, oh yeah, fuck that, good, take away their phone. But I didn't even think of the fact that all of a sudden they go to school the next day, and it's like, what's your son's name?
Bowen.
It's like, oh, Bowen, how you didn't answer the group text? Like, oh, you didn't see what we said? Like, oh, did your dad take your phone away? Like, there's that aspect of it too.
Totally.
Like, all of a sudden, he's the loser that didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And kids are gnarly to each other.
They're so mean. They're so homophobic still. I was
really.
I was shocked to find that out. I couldn't believe it. I thought we're all like
past that.
Mm-hmm. I thought like being a parent, trying to be a progressive thinker, especially on gender norms, it's like do what you do.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's a lot to keep up with now there, though.
But it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
It's still the exact same thing. Like if you advocate for just equality, then people label you like, oh, that guy must be gay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still shitty to each other. Their kids are just shitty.
Yeah. And there's that thing too. It's like, and phones and social media don't help this too. It's like kids have always been shitty to each other.
Totally.
But I watched this Louis C.K. skit once, and he put it so perfectly. It's like, it was different when you would say something shitty and you're looking at the person's face, and you see their face change, and you're like, ooh, that kind of hurt. I can tell I hurt their feelings. Like, that kind of sucked. Maybe I won't say it like that next time. But compared to just like commenting or sending something in a group text, like even me as like a fucking 30-year-old adult, like sometimes me and my friends have group text about like whatever, like something we're like doing or something, and then it'll kind of like go into poking fun, and someone will say something, and like sometimes you're like, oh fuck, that sucked. I wonder if like they thought about that before they said it, because it's completely different sending something as a message or as a comment than just like saying it to someone's face.
Do you guys ever get negative comments or trolls on your accounts that you have to just like, do you delete them? What do you do if someone's like, I saw Solars up in Whistler and he fucking snubbed me, he's a dickhead, and then you're like, what, do we leave that there? Or does that just not happen
much? It has happened.
Yeah.
I've seen some negative comments. It's super rare, but at least me, we all share the Man Boys Instagram account. We all run it together. Yeah. At least me personally, I've seen negative comments and just left them. Right. I think like leave them for other people to see. Whatever it is, what it is. Maybe if it started getting like super bad, I'd feel inclined to delete them. But we're fortunate enough that we haven't had too much of that.
I feel like
we had like
lucky.
this like very like super like Christian account once. Yeah. Giving us a bunch of shit in our YouTube comments, but they actually started. It was like this Christian snowboarding account from Alaska, and like
I think they follow me because I'm Shred Jesus, but Shred Jesus is just like that's a guy up here gave me that name. He's Shred Judas. You know what I mean? Like it's like it's just a silly name. Like
do you remember what they're called? Like
it was something with Jesus in the name though.
Yeah, and they're it's like an Alaska snowboard group.
Oh, there's somebody listening to it right now that's like a part of that group going, he's talking about us.
And like nothing against Christianity, like if everyone's allowed to
No, it's kind of dumb. Honestly, I'm sorry. I grew up Christian and it's kind of a dumb thing. I've been really like thinking about it a lot lately, and it's sorry to all our Christian believers out there. And
dumb.
There are some.
I grew up Christian, but I agree with you.
There are some guys that have been on the show that are heavy Christians. Jim Rippey is big time into it, and will I'm sorry, I don't believe what you believe, but I don't think that means anything between the two of us. He seems like smart enough to be like, you know what, I believe in this thing. It works for me. Yeah. And my mom is super hella religious. Yeah. And if it's working for her,
mine too.
I really want her to get the positivity out of it that she gets. But for me, I'm looking at it going, it's the Santa story. You told me when I was 5, Santa's not real. It's the same story, but it's real now all of a sudden.
And it's the same with all these different religions. Like all these different religions have like a Messiah, have a Savior. It's all the same thing. And it's like fundamentally, like some religions can be good because they can maybe give humans some order in this weird era of overpopulation that just like maybe it gives some order and gives like a good rule book. But when it comes down to like people trying to control people, and like trying to like convert all these people, and it just
that was the last straw for me. Yeah. The last straw wasn't the conversion thing; it was just the simple thought. And this goes back to Jess's interview. The simple thought that if your religion has at the top an elite group of white old men, it was probably made up by white old men.
For sure.
If there's no women, or if women are substandard, it is probably made up by a white old man. If there's no black people at the top of your religion, you have a bullshit religion. I'm sorry, you just do. If there's not like an equal number of like prodigal children that are like, oh, this kid really gets it. He's moved way up, or she's moved way up the ladder. Then it is just old white men. Then I'm sorry, your religion is more than likely made up by old white men. That's just me riffing on religions.
I was raised Christian too, and I remember my first turning point was being a super young teen, like maybe 12, 13 years old or something, and just like before sleep, like thinking about like, oh, these questions, like, oh, God is real, or like, what about this, or like, this is kind of fucked up about that story, like, how does that make sense? And then feeling guilty in my head before I go to bed, feeling like I needed to apologize to God and like say a prayer to God. And I remember a turning point being like, wait a minute, what's wrong with that scenario? Like, my brain's developing and I'm just like having questions, and like I'm taught that to like, don't question anything.
Yeah.
No matter how crazy it seems, everything that your Lord Jesus and that God is, this is just right.
Sure.
So I remember that was my turning point, and like probably just like moving to Whistler and finding my way, and not just being raised in a Christian family anymore.
Right.
Making different friends.
Right.
But yeah, like anyways,
being an adult, thinking about
it, meeting different people, and just thinking logically about it, and not just being like, I'm on this team.
Right.
It's all just a fucking team.
It is.
And
Sure.
so there's this one group that was like, for going back to the trolling thing, he's been trolling me since like my alternative video parts, just like talking shit. And then he did this like super like funny review on like depth perception, where he like put the whole depth perception on movie on YouTube and did a voice recording over it, basically talking about what he liked about depth perception. And then anytime something popped up that like didn't agree with his like super serious Christianity, like he's like talking shit on like Robin Van Gyn, like here's the classic like modern age of you know, the man woman trying to empower the female, but the Lord Jesus Christ says like women should submit, and man is, it was so fucked, so misogynistic, and the whole thing was just
unreal, right?
Unreal.
That's
and
like,
so I don't know who this dude is, but like at a certain point, it's like, yeah, I agree that everyone's entitled to having their own opinions and own religions, but it's like when you were posting shit like that, it's like, I'm sorry, dude,
this isn't
faith in action. I'm calling him out. Faith in action. I just remembered it. That's his YouTube account.
Yeah.
Sorry, dude, but keep your shit to yourself, because
or go.
We're not chasing after you.
Yeah, go get faith-based stuff. Go do faith-based stuff.
Just because you're a Christian snowboarder, it doesn't mean that you can fucking rip apart. Like, I know Robin Van Gyn personally, and she is one of the most awesome girls I know.
Hell yeah.
And she is far from a lady man. She's a very attractive, like, awesome chick.
Yep.
So take your religious shit.
Yeah, her part in depth perception was great.
Yeah,
I said that after I saw that show. I made a point of saying to her, it was nice to see someone who was invited. Mm-hmm. You know, like Jess is uninvited. She was invited.
Yeah.
And just, it's so clear that she was in her element up there.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't have to do a separate part. And now here's a girl doing this.
No, she just rode right beside them. Rode the same pillow fields as them.
How cool is that?
For sure.
I love that. That was like epic.
And she's also like, I really like having conversations with Robin about it. Is like, she's not. I have a hard time with some like super feminist girls when they're that like aren't even willing to admit that like our bodies are structured differently.
Uh-oh.
You know?
You're touching on what I used to think this, and I don't think it anymore.
What I'm about to say?
Yeah. I mean, just the structure on the bodies.
Well,
it is.
Yeah, but we're okay. We can
we exist on
disagree, but we
sure.
There is like science is science.
Yeah,
and like even if you take a man and a woman, if you take 50 men, 50 women, and they both grow up eating the same thing, like men are generally just a little bit like.
But you're going to get
stronger.
some fat men, and you're going to get some thin men. You're going to get some girly men, and you're going to get some manly men.
For sure.
Where I was going with this is Robin's not
the type of girl that's going to deny biological differences.
Yeah, I understand.
She is going to. Robin accepts those biological differences and fucking is still just a beast and charges and just like. She's not going to try and be like, no, like, I just get frustrated with the feminist thing sometimes. And it's like, no, women are being held back. And it's like, well, yes, they are, for sure. But then there's also some biological differences that.
I'm going to repeat this because it begs repeating now. And I'm just going to tell it to you. And if it doesn't go in the show, it doesn't.
Okay.
When I realized that the CFL and the NFL that's men, right? Yeah. And the difference between a CFL, like the top paid CFL player
compared to the NFL,
the top paid NFL player, every single year since those two have existed, take the top NFL guy and put him in CFL, he would crush like so badly. Mm-hmm. It's not because Canadians are less masculine than Americans.
Because they haven't been provided with the opportunity.
They haven't been provided with the money, with the incentives. It's a matter of incentives. Like, so those guys train more because they don't have to work fucking jobs on weekends and the afternoons and in the off season.
Yeah.
Like, which that's true. CFL guys get paid $40,000 a year, and some of them, and then they work at Home Depot in the off season instead of working out all the time on an NFLer's pay, and that creates this difference between men. Mm-hmm. That's the same exact difference that we've created between men and women. So if you had a girl that grew up from a little girl to a big girl that trained the same as a man who has the same body type as her, so, you know, there are some women that are going to have different body types than other women. You know, the gender thing, if you actually look at the Olympics, that's where gender became an actual scientific thing.
Right.
Gender is a broad spectrum, bro. Like, there is like feminine men and masculine women.
For sure.
And it's not just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's like a million variables. So not every man can be the best fucking snowboarder.
No.
They need to have a body type and an environment they grow up in, and Shaun White's parents, and they have to have...
Yeah, totally.
You know what I
There's
mean?
so many things
So
about
if there was a girl who had the same body type and Shaun White's parents, she could be as good as Shaun White. Here's the proof. There isn't a fucking man on the planet that was a pro snowboarder up until 95, 2000 that could beat Chloe Kim in the pipe.
Fuck no.
There isn't a person
no.
on the planet that could beat Chloe Kim. It doesn't matter that she's a girl. And now, if she could have been, why wasn't there a Chloe Kim in the '98 Olympics? Because the resources weren't there. There weren't the boards.
Okay,
there wasn't the. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'll stop you, and I will bite my tongue and be like, that was a very well delivered argument on that fact, because that's the first time I've heard it broken down like that. I really liked your metaphor comparing the CFL and the NFL.
Yeah, man.
That hit home and made a lot of sense. I was
Thanks.
like, oh yeah, and that hit home for me too, because that's how I feel being a Canadian snowboarder and having to work through my whole career. I feel like I could have been training and practicing more, and I feel like that's the same thing with like women and
it
men
is. It's
in sports.
that same
but then
weird
also
thing.
The one that really hit home was the Chloe comparison.
Yeah.
Or even Jamie Anderson for that matter. It's like, take what they're doing now. It's not like females' bodies are changing from what they were in the 90s. They're still the same females.
Same.
So that is a fucking really good point, Eric. And
thanks, buddy.
That was enough to make me like more or less change my mind.
I do still
stand with the fact that there are biological differences to the way that we develop. Like,
absolutely.
Women grow big tits and we have broader shoulders generally.
Sure.
I still stand strong to that, but those points are so fucking sick.
Yeah, I understand.
And I agree that they...
It needs to be said right now, because like what's happening is this kind of anti-feminist thing.
For sure.
Because there's a lot of feminists that don't know why they're so fucking mad.
There's a lot of bad feminists.
There's a lot of bad feminists.
There's a lot of feminists that make them look bad.
Yeah, because there's a lot of good men. There's tons. Most of the people that I know are fucking good dudes. There's not that ass-slapping Harvey Weinstein guy in regular day-to-day anymore.
Totally.
Not as much, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And we got a long way to go. But a lot of the feminist movement is not moving in that direction. It's moving in a just angry, all men fucking suck kind of direction.
Yeah,
so that
which is too bad, because then it gets like guys that are good guys feeling defensive.
Yeah.
And it's not good. Whereas like if you took like that whole argument, or rather, for lack of a better term, not speech, basically that whole analogy you gave me was like so good. I wish there was a version of that for any time someone who wasn't a misogynist, but someone who was annoyed with the crazy feminist anti-men movement, because that was a really good anyways,
thanks, man.
Because I'm on the side of like I'm so like I love seeing women succeed in action sports. Like,
fuck yeah.
This Maui event that just happened with women surfing was one of the sickest women's surf events in a while. They had good conditions. The girls all charged really big waves. They all surf really well. Like, so sick for women surfing. So I'm on that side, but then I also am on the side where I'm like getting frustrated with the fuck men, fuck men this, and you know,
well, even that surf competition. I'm just going out on a limb and guessing, but are they going to give the bigger waves to the men or the women? Like on the big day, are the women going to get the big day, or are they going to save it for the men?
That's the thing for this event. Like, the women got like really sick conditions.
They got the big day,
and it fucking showed, because all these girls. It wasn't like, oh, look, the women can't handle it. It was like, look at how good all these women surfed.
Fuck yeah.
And so all these chicks are just charging on these like heavy waves, like hitting the lip in like super critical sections, and like fucking snapping and floating and like airdropping into the flats and stomping it. Like, it was fucking really
Women
sick
are coming up in sports. It's going to happen. And
I'm super impressed with, obviously, two sports that connect with me, surfing and snowboarding. I'm really impressed with where women's surfing and women's snowboarding is going right now. I feel like right now it's in like a crazy place.
That's rad.
But and also another thing happening in women's surfing right now, I'm pretty sure that next year will be the first year where all competitive women's surfing, same cash prizes as the men.
That's what it needs to be.
That's what it needs to be.
Okay, that's epic. Do you want to wrap it up? What do we got? What do you have to hit on the?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, if any of the listeners are curious, like what I'm up to right now, like, yeah, I guess I would say this year was my first like blow up year that I keep talking about, never having a blow up year. So like, I'm super stoked. I'm super motivated right now.
It's well deserved.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. We're going to keep going with Man Boys. I'm probably going to do some stuff with Travis again next year. We have our Truffle Pig short film coming out December 6th. Still really love snowboarding. I'm still having a lot of fun doing this. And
fuck yeah. People
keep on asking me, like, what's next, man? What's next, man? And I'm like, dude, lots. I have so many more goals. Like, just, when you just said that when we first got here, and you're like, your early Ricker got 3 covers in 1 month. Like, I just got 2 covers in 1 month, and as soon as you said that, I was like, "Oh, maybe I can try and get 3." Like, that'd be sick.
Yeah, man.
So I don't know.
It's harder now for sure.
It is. There's less print.
There's less print. There's way less print. But fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, I'm stoked, and Jenny, I don't know how many listeners are listening to us right now, but I always appreciate the fans, the people who support and like what I do. I do read the comments, and you guys are awesome. So thank you for watching me snowboard and like allowing me to do what I do.
That's epic. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Eric.
FNRad shout-outs this week to all the amazing listeners who've reached out since the Jess episode with encouragement for this direction of the show. I'm starting to find my voice, I think, and I'm definitely excited to do more interviews in this long-form conversation format. I'm having a lot of fun. One last time, I'll remind you the Waffle House of Snowboards raffle for a wired snowboard. There are only 12 tickets left at this time. Tickets are $20, so join the Facebook group and buy a ticket and hold your breath, and you'll maybe win a wired board any size, any shape they make, and you choose whatever graphic you want for the top sheet. Second prize is a Dakine Heli Pro backpack, and if the waffle sells out, we draw for a tribute hoodie. Special thanks to Dakine for gearing me up this year with Gore-Tex outerwear and gloves and backpacks to give away to our listeners. Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC has given me hoodies and hats for listeners, and they gave me my new favorite mid-layer, a Patagonia Micro Puff Zip hoodie. It's so warm and cozy. I want you to go to tributeboardshop.com and get yourself some gear. Thanks for listening. I love you all. Be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast, brought to you by SIA Productions.